to debut the Grand Prix Council debate. And tonight we have Counterpoints and a difficult truth. And they are going to be debating, should streamers be allowed to drink and get high on stream? And I understand a difficult truth is opposition, counterpoints is proposition. So we're all very, very eager to hear what these two gentlemen have to say about this issue. The issue is relevant to Twitch streamers, many members of the community. For a chat, if you get your questions and hopefully your biddies ready and support what we're doing, support these people who take their time. They have families, they have lives, and they're willing to address this issue. It has been a rather serious issue for some streamers, and we want to sort of get to the bottom of it. Is there something that we, as streamers and community members, should be doing about this? We'll make up our minds after the debate. Okay, if you're ready, can we start with proposition, please?
Sure. So I have four main points, basically saying that streamers should be allowed to consume narcotics while streaming. There is a difference between use and abuse. People can have beers. Even if I wanted to crack open a beer right now and have a couple while we were talking, it wouldn't necessarily be negative. Same thing if I wanted to spark up a bowl. I know that marijuana is not legal in all 50 states and is still federally illegal, but at the same time, I think there's a way that you can responsibly use marijuana. So there is a difference between use and abuse. However, if I think that would be a little bit different than if I was just taking bong rips right in front of you, or drinking bong water, or slamming liquor, or something like that. I think we can differentiate these things, and especially as adults, people who are of legal age to consume these narcotics, we can make those differentiations. The next thing was Twitch can have tools to assist in these crises. So, for instance, we brought up the fact earlier that people have had crises online, and there wasn't a really good way to address it. I think there should be a reporting feature on Twitch that allows you to report people who are either threatening homicide or suicide, or they're in a mental or emotional crisis. That way, if there is a way to track that person, Twitch can assist with that. Or if it's a problematic profile that's doing the same job or the same thing over and over again, they can ban that person from the platform. You could also control exposure to children through age restrictions. I know that children lie about their age, but that also comes down to parenting. Third point is positive examples can be made by responsible adults. So, for instance, if we're playing an Among Us stream and we all drink beer and we have a good time and we're bullshitting and we're social and all that kind of stuff, that can be shown as a positive example of consuming narcotics. Negative examples, and this is my fourth and final point, negative examples can also be used as a lesson. If somebody, like I kind of memed out about a little bit earlier, they're taking bong rips, they're literally sad to watch because it's literally depressing. Not only will that person suffer social consequences for their actions, but also they will be, through their actions, teaching lessons to the broader community. And with that, I yield.
All right, I am a difficult truth, and I will be opposition. Today we're addressing I think it's a very serious topic, and it's more of a health topic than anything. And in my opinion, I think that, like Counterpoint said, there is a difference between overindulgence or just having like a beer on stream, which is obviously not a big deal or not really the problem. The issue is abuse, right? The core issue or topic is abuse, and I think that it just doesn't belong on Twitch. Not that you can't do it necessarily, or that people shouldn't be allowed to do what they want, but I don't think that it really does have a spot on Twitch or YouTube, particularly because Twitch and YouTube are, especially Twitch. When you think of Twitch, you think of video games and stuff like that. So I don't know if it really has a place on Twitch. I think that people should really be as mindful as possible in terms of that, because you as a content creator do have influence and stuff like that, and I think that in particular with kids and stuff like that, I think that it could be there is a line that can get crossed and it becomes negative. It could also affect the streamer negatively. For example, when people start encouraging streamers to do to get more and more and more down the rabbit hole by saying, hey, you know what, take another shot, I'll donate another 10. Oh, take another shot, I'll donate 5 subscriptions. Oh, take another shot, I'll donate, whatever. And it kind of like perpetuates. Or there could be a situation where this could actually be encouraged and perpetuated in a negative way. I think that if this happens, I think that it should just have its own place, kind of like everything, right? Yes, Twitch has a mature audience section where you can select that option, but they still don't allow certain things, even though there's an 18 and over mature section, they still don't allow certain things. So I don't know. In my opinion, I think that substance the abuse or continuous alcohol abuse shouldn't be on Twitch. And with that, I yield.
Okay. And then do you want us to do like intros or anything, or you just want us to get into it? And by intros, I just mean like tell people who I am, because I forgot to do that. Or is it just us? All right, let's just go with the subject. So I'm happy that you brought up children. Okay, so basically what I would say is that there's a problem in American drinking culture, and effectively what it is infantilization. And infantilization leads to taboo, and then taboo leads to curiosity, and then that curiosity and that taboo makes things that are dumb and dangerous exciting. What I mean by that is I am probably older than most of the people, well, maybe not most of the people, but I'm older than a decent chunk of the people who are watching. And in the thousands, there was a large taboo around marijuana and a decent chunk around underage consumption of alcohol. But what that did is it created an excitement because we didn't know, and we could sneak around, and we could do this and we could do that. And basically what that does, while it is exciting, and I do think that marijuana is actually more fun when it's illegal, as long as you don't get caught. What it does is it infantilizes the American youth, and it gives them a completely warped view of how to consume drugs. I know people who like basically base their entire personality around alcohol or marijuana, and I think that's largely because we don't have an actual sober adult conversation about consuming narcotics as an adult. We basically tell kids, oh, it's bad, it's unhealthy, don't do it, and then they catch us on Friday and Saturday nights at the bar with our friends, slamming down Guinness. So that, I think, part of what's going on is infantilization and hypocrisy, because adults already do these things. It's just a question of whether or not we can do it responsibly. The next thing that you said was narcotics use on Twitch doesn't really have a space. Well, I don't know if that's really like an argument that I would necessarily follow, because people would say that politics doesn't belong on Twitch. So, just because something doesn't currently have a space, or it's a little icky or something like that, there's people who can make the same arguments about what we're doing right now. It should just be about video games. It should just be about fun. We shouldn't be talking about rape, murder, drugs, incest, drone bombings, or anything like that. It's like, no, like we created the space. And on top of that, there could be positive spaces, like, so for instance, like liquor consumption, alcohol consumption shows that show different brands and like all that kind of stuff. And there is, I think, room for that, even if Twitch disagrees. Finally, you brought up donations for dangerous behavior, basically an audience rooting on like horrific behavior. I think if that's not already against TOS, it should be against TOS. You should not be able to buy somebody hurting themselves for your amusement. And on top of that, I don't think that's necessarily something that's a problem with the drugs themselves, because, for instance, if somebody was like, hey, somebody donate $500 and I'll staple my nuts to the table, that's just as toxic, because you're doing something for attention that's harmful that then gets you money. If you want to give me $500 to staple my nuts to the table, I'll think about
it. Oh, man.
And I yield.
Okay.
That was great. Oh man. So yes, you're right. There is an issue with like infantilization, or I guess the best way I can put it in my head, maybe it can be corrected if I'm wrong, but in my head, I think what you were referring to is in a weird way the Streisand effect, where the more you kind of like talk, the more you want to stop something, the more it happens, or whatnot, or the more attention you bring to it. But that's still like that still doesn't mean that it has like a necessarily like a place on Twitch. I know that you brought up the whole like, oh well, politics isn't video games, therefore it does, it shouldn't belong on Twitch. But I think this is different, right? This is different, and to a degree, there are certain things that are against terms of service. I don't know if there's anything wrong with like you getting subscriptions for, I don't know, taking an extra shot or something like that. You may, a streamer may get banned for something else, but I don't know if they'll get banned for necessarily taking that shot for money. I have seen, however, where things can get out of hand, where streamers have been overindulging and getting drunk on stream, and still allowed to stream until a line was crossed, where a streamer consistently was getting drunk and stuff like that. No problem. But one day, he got incredibly drunk and was playing around with a firearm, and that firearm accidentally discharged during the stream, and that's the reason why that streamer got banned. This all could have been avoided if if we don't have that space where this could actually occur, right? And that's where I think that kind of argument comes in. You just really shouldn't let there be a situation where that could happen, right? That's why we have terms of service, and you are right. Things like that should be against terms of service, and I don't know. Twitch reviews it and does what it does on a whim, but quite often people are allowed to do things that should definitely be against terms of service, and I think that it could lead to very toxic situations.
Yeah, and I was saying this a little bit before stream that like people kind of rise to the expectations that you set for them. I think Twitch, God bless them, should have they should have basically a reporting feature. So for instance, you brought up somebody playing with a firearm. Who's to say that in the future somebody isn't going to be live streaming them articulating a suicide or articulating homicidal thoughts or articulating their desire to overdose or articulating the fact that they want to do something dangerous? I think that there basically needs to be a reporting function on Twitch for saying this. Not only is this person violating terms of service, but they're basically within a crisis right now. We don't know whether or not they're safe. We don't know whether or not law enforcement intervention is needed. Mm-hmm. We don't know whether or not EMT stuff is needed. And one of the scary things about this is I know it's kind of become normalized to use a VPN in the modern era for privacy concerns. But basically, if people are using VPNs, I don't even know if people are trackable. So even if we were to bully Twitch a little bit and say, hey, you need to take into consideration that people could do incredibly dangerous or dumb things on your platform, and you banning them after the fact isn't enough because they could have crises that they're broadcasting to an audience. We need to be able to deal with a crisis in real time. I don't even know if they have the tools to deal with it. And that's kind of like another thing that's muddying the water. I'm sure what'll happen is what I advocate for, this more like Wild West mentality, will probably only persist as long as something terrible doesn't happen. And then basically once something extremely terrible happens, somebody dies from alcohol poisoning or dangerous stuff like on Twitch, then that's probably when they'll step up and do something about it. Unfortunately, that is kind of the nature of the beast. That's also the nature of freedom. Just because you're free doesn't mean that you're free to make correct choices. And that's what I would encourage, especially younger people in the audience. Just because you have somebody you admire and look up to as a role model doesn't mean that they actually behave well in all circumstances. And I think that would be another important lesson to learn, especially for young people, especially seeing their role models consume narcotics publicly, is we all say cringe things. We all do cringe things. And that's another thing that I would like the consumption of narcotics on Twitch to reveal, is that we are flawed, stupid human beings with webcams, and you shouldn't worship these people. Like they are just assholes with webcam.
Yes. Yes, that's true. But like you mentioned that until something bad happens, then Twitch will be motivated to do something. We should probably do something before said bad thing happens. Like I used that example, someone playing around with a firearm while heavily intoxicated under normal circumstances that would have possibly wouldn't have happened, but because they were heavily intoxicated, that firearm was discharged, and that's extremely dangerous. That is a threat to self-harm.
So what part would you want to ban? Would you want to ban playing with deadly weapons while live, or would you want to ban drug consumption? Would you want to moderate drug consumption? What would be the TOS? What would be the solution?
I think we would need to moderate that, because you are leading to a situation where people can get hurt, right? So that's the whole point. There is a terms of service that says you cannot do things that are hurting yourself or others. That exists. Mm-hmm. So I think that we can kind of use that as our cudgel. I don't know if that's the right word, but you can actually use that as the parameters to set moderation so that people don't, aren't encouraged to do so, right? Because and kids, even if you do tell them and teach them that your idol or your favorite streamer or your favorite athlete or your favorite whatever is not a perfect person, I mean, they still will emulate and imitate, and that can have an impression whether you say things to them or not.
Yeah, well, so I'm still a little confused. So you said that like we could moderate, so maybe you could explain that a little bit to me. But like basically my thing would be like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you can't tell somebody like, hey, you can drink on stream, but only a reasonable amount. Like because everybody's definition of reasonable is going to be completely different. Also the same thing that you said where like you can't do anything that hurts yourself or others on stream. Well, people have incredibly different definitions on what hurts somebody. So for instance, whether that's narcotics consumption or getting a tattoo, people disagree on what is like physically or emotionally or mentally harmful. So what's the specific thing being banned? Are we just going to say, nope, sorry guys, you fucked around too much, you did too much stupid shit, you can't drink alcohol and you can't smoke pot on stream anymore? Or like what's the crux? What's the line?
The line is like what I mean by reasonable is at whatever a reasonable person deems, right? So for example, would someone reasonable look at somebody drinking 1 or 2 beers and be like, oh nope, that's too much? Clearly not. Can you actually tell by their behavior what is going on stream? I mean, we have VODs for a reason. What is going on stream? Is there something that's getting out of hand? Or is that person okay? Are they posing a threat to themselves or others? I think that's like more objective than anything.
When you say mod, are you talking about like Twitch employees, or are you talking about like employees of the streamer themselves?
Well, let me remind you of the protocol for this one. You're going to keep their direct question for your cross-examination.
Okay.
Yeah, until you've finished defending yourself, because I can see that you're ready to go. But let's have a bit more on the rebuttal. And then we'll have the jury, if you haven't forgotten. And we already have questions coming in. And this is going to be a good one, I'm sure. So let's put a little talc on your gloves.
Yeah, so I'll try to throw this on in a more directed way. Okay, I feel like you're being incredible. Oh wait, I said you. Hold on. I feel like the solution that you're proposing is incredibly vague. My problem with it is the fact that I think that it's not specific enough. Like if I was a Twitch employee, or if I was a Twitch supervisor, and somebody said, "Hey, people are consuming narcotics and they're doing dangerous things on your platform. You need to moderate it, and you just need to use the objectively reasonable standard." I have no idea what to do with that information. Do I hire employees? Do they watch streams now? Do they watch reports come in? Do we start tracking ISPs? What do we do? And like, I know this is supposed to be like a cross-examination thing, but that's where I feel like it's a little frustrating. We can vaguely gesture at like the moral correctness of not doing drugs online, but 1, people want to do it. 2, it's at least partially entertaining. 3, there's a way to do it correctly. And 4, basically these errant examples are going to suffer other consequences. whether that's a ban, legal consequences, something like that. I know you're trying to prevent these people from hurting, and sorry for saying you again, but I know that the aim of this action is to try to prevent harm to these people before they do it. But where do we draw the line on when people are just stupid and you can't save everyone from themselves?
That's a
Yes.
that's a fair rhetorical. So,
Yeah, of course. You can't save everybody, and there are systems that you can deploy to moderate this. You have, like, I mean, there was even a suggestion of having a reporting system. There was even a suggestion of having a reporting system where someone could say, hey, there is some, disturbing behavior going on in such and such channel. That solution was already proposed, and I agree with that. There should be some type of reporting system. That's what I would say.
Okay. Then the counter points that I would have to that is just, as I mentioned previously, I'm not saying that that's not a good idea. What I am saying is that it's not enough. So for instance, I'm pretty sure Twitch probably already has reporting systems. Not only that, I'm sure that they don't have the time or the capacity to review all of them, and they're probably trying to keep a low overhead. Like I said, that's why I think something dangerous will occur first before they do anything about it. And then finally, like with everybody using VPNs, while I think that's okay, that's an okay system to ban a channel or to ban an individual from Twitch or suspend them temporarily or something like that. I don't know if that is sufficient to address somebody who's in crisis. And that would be like, do we start requiring that Twitch streamers have their phone number or their actual address tied to their profiles if they want to be partners or affiliates? Like what's the higher level reporting criteria that we're going to have? That way we're not just allowing these people to hurt themselves, because it's the balance between freedom and security, as in all things political. So that's my pushback is that this solution feels vague to me and insufficient for the problem that we're trying to address.
Yeah, I agree that you won't be able to get everything, but I think that Twitch can bring out a campaign of awareness and say, if you see this type of behavior, you know how they always do like a rollout of new terms of service or a rollout of a new feature. They always do these types of things. That would be a perfect opportunity to say, hey, guess what? We've got a new system in place. Here are the new rules. If you see this, say something. Okay. And like that's about as much as you can, I think, realistically do.
No, I agree completely, and like I know this probably isn't as sexy or exciting for the people at home, but this was kind of my point, is that like I think there's a way to consume narcotics properly. I think for the people who aren't doing it, there's an insufficient security net right now. There's some challenges that need to be addressed, but basically I still think that people should be able to consume some level of narcotics. And if they start breaching these rules and start engaging in these dangerous behaviors, like you already mentioned, then it's not necessarily the problem is with like banning narcotics from Twitch. The problem is with creating a reporting or identification program that allows Twitch to get law enforcement to intervene. So just a little bit about my background. I was a law enforcement officer, and I had to deal with people who were consuming narcotics and threatening self-harm and harm to other people. And one of the crappiest things we had to deal with was when somebody was doing that, but they didn't have any kind of location information. So, Jimbo was running around saying that he's going to do something bad. Well, Jimbo turned off his cell phone, left in his car, and he's not at any of the 3 primary locations that he's supposed to be. That's a big problem. Because if you report to first responders like, hey, this person's threatening self-harm, or they're in an emotional or mental crisis, but we don't know where to go, we can't do anything about it. So that's another challenge with this new system that we're proposing.
Yeah, of course, there's going to be challenges and limits within the scope of reality of what we can actually achieve. But I still think an effort needs to be made. And furthermore, I think that if we want to have a space where there could be a little bit more leniency. Why not create it? I mean, we can make an entire different platform where these things are not as restricted. Just in the same sense that, like, Twitch does have a mature setting, but you still can't, for example, show nudity. That's a mature adult content, right? There's no doubt there. I don't think that's really to be debated. That is an example, perfect example, right? Like, Twitch doesn't allow nudity, right? But it does have a mature setting. It does have an 18 and up. It does have it. Wait, is it 18 or 21 and up? It does have a setting where you can do that. Oh, mature audiences, click here. You can't show gore on Twitch. Things like that. So, I mean, they have their spaces. There are spaces where this can perfectly exist. And I don't think Twitch is it, or YouTube or whatnot.
To be boxed into the position of like, no, I think 15-year-olds need to be able to watch people do NSFW stuff while smoking bongs. Like, I don't agree with that. I am a parent, as much as I might be in the pro narcotics position. But yeah, so my entire problem with this, or my entire problem with this line of thinking, is that I think we need to stop infantilizing people from choices and decisions. Oftentimes this gets down into like a left-right dichotomy. I identify as centrist, or maybe even center-right. Some people disagree with that contention, but like, freedom or the ability to make your own decisions should not be free from consequences. And oftentimes what I see is lefties, progressives, and liberals say, no, you should be free. You should be free to do whatever you want. You should be free to make these choices. You should be free to be promiscuous. You should be free to do drugs, to drink, whatever. But then they also try to insulate people from consequence. They try to, change the Twitch platform. So we have these NSFW and alcohol consumer things, and we have these reporting features. And some of these are good, but at the same time, we're doing is we're effectively insulating people from the consequences of their actions. And on top of that, kind of padding social expectations for young people, where like I basically want to tell 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds, depending on like what narcotics we're talking about, hey, you're free to consume these products, but at the same time, look at this jackass who's consuming these products, making an ass of himself publicly, and he's basically showing that he's not responsible. Now, maybe Twitch should come down and say, you're abusing narcotics, and in a way that is threatening self-harm. You're out of here. You're kicked. You're muted. You're banned. Whatever. But at the same time, it's like that negative example, I don't think should be necessarily taken off of the radar of young people.
I don't disagree that people shouldn't understand, like, people shouldn't be insulated from consequences, but I don't feel like what I'm saying is preventing that. I feel like it's just basically saying, like, it's my argument is just basically saying, hey, I'm not sure, or I'm not comfortable if these are the platforms where this type of behavior should be. There are other places or create one that will have this, so that all of that's being mentioned occurs, and there's a space for that, just like there's a space for gambling. It's not much different, in my opinion.
Sure. And I'm not gonna argue against age restriction. Again, like, I don't think that my 13-year-old, like, I don't have a 13-year-old yet, but I don't think a 13-year-old should be watching a 30-year-old male just doing bong rips for like 8 hours while he's playing video games in his in like a man Speedo or something like that. That's like, it's not a position I'm gonna hold. I don't care whatever the debate is. Like,
great.
Yeah.
So that great. In other words, there should be limits, restrictions on platforms, such as, hey, maybe that's kind of not okay in a platform that's like primarily not that other stuff doesn't exist on this platform. Clearly, we're talking politics, but primarily stuff like video games are the overwhelming majority of what Twitch is video games. In other words, there's a lot of kids, who hang around. So yeah, the chances are that actually can happen. Twitch does try to protect itself by saying you actually can't be 13 under 13. So therefore, if you are under 13 and you're caught, that account is automatically banned. But however, I think that it still stands that you need to put some type of some type of stopgap, or I don't know, restriction, or just say terms of service to try to limit that. Of course, it's not going to grab everything, nor is it going to be perfect. I seriously doubt that, but something does need to be put in place so that this behavior is at least curtailed or discouraged. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, it's not only just for the audience. It's not only just for the audience, but it's also for the streamer too.
Examples of this like negative behavior going beyond the pale, and how much of a percentage do you? I know this is supposed to be in cross-examination, but how much of a problem do you think this really is?
In Twitch?
Yeah.
Probably not a big one. At least, I mean, anecdotally speaking. I don't know. Maybe it is bigger than I think.
Well, I'm sorry, Universal Discourse, but I think we're arriving at like a centrist solution.
You might be. Me might be.
Are we actually agreeing with each other?
How you can defend the points a little bit. Then we can go to jury. We do have questions, and I have questions, and then you can go ahead and knock each other out in a minute.
Okay.
You're very good on time, by the way. Thank you so much for respecting the time. So to recap that, the question was about how big of a problem was it? What is the scope of the problem?
To be quite honest, I don't know what the scope of the problem is. It could be little or it could be big. Anecdotally speaking, I don't know if it's a big problem, but I do think that, at least to me, substance abuse and stuff like that is very important to me, especially with like health wise. So yeah, if there's a way to like kind of put fail safes or guardrails in place, I would be in favor of that.
Okay. Yeah, and for me, I don't know of anything yet. So I have there's alternative platforms. There's other platforms that I have heard of it being a big deal. I've heard of basically people using Facebook Live in order to commit grievous crimes, not just substance abuse, but also literally commit homicide, suicide. Stalking, abuse, verbal tirades and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I feel like there might not be that much contention on this debate is because basically I think that there needs to be a solution for reporting. Like, I think that's the primary thing, because it's not necessarily the narcotics themselves. I still contend from my pro position that it's not the narcotics themselves. It's actually the toxic behavior. So if there's toxic behavior, homicide, suicide, stalking, threatening, anything like that, then Twitch needs to not just be able to respond to an account and like, see like a mass flag and then like ban it and then review it afterwards and all that kind of stuff. They need an in real time reporting system where like maybe it's a different button or it's a sub button under the reporting feature where it literally says, I literally think this person is in danger or they are dangerous to other people. Click submit. And that, like, while I'm sure that can be absolutely abused, obviously we already have like mass reporting strikes against Twitch streamers at this time. I would hope that if it was like an IRL threat to life or great bodily harm, Twitch would take that seriously. That would be my hope.
Yes, you're right. But sometimes the toxic behavior is interconnected with, a substance abuse or alcoholism or something like that. So why not try to like discourage that? So that's what I mean. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. There can be toxic behavior and stuff like that, but some of that may be linked to that, especially if you see it on stream and you can see the effects on stream, I think that probably should be addressed or curtailed.
So, okay, so what's the limit? So I don't know if I'm allowed to ask
Mhm.
questions right now, but I'm going to ask. What's the limit?
Rhetorically speaking, you can.
Okay, yeah. So what's the limit? Because so for instance, like I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. Maybe not right now, but back in the day, I used to be. I used to take a little bit to get drunk. So if I slam back a six pack in an hour and I'm still walking around talking perfectly fine, still my happy go lucky slap happy self, then is that, am I in trouble because I drank a six pack? If I start cussing, is that a problem? I cuss all the time. I cuss when I'm sober. If I start being verbally abusive to people, is that where the line is? Because I'm verbally abusive to people when I'm sober. What's the line?
The line
Mhm.
starts to be when you become like, because even then though, however, even then you may not be um you may not be necessarily like completely gone or whatnot. I still think that also kind of puts the onus on you as like a content creator as well. Or it puts the onus on a content creator when people see this type of behavior and then they're like, "Oh yeah, hey, look, you know, they're hanging and this is okay." Um I don't know. I don't know if that's like the real type of like
Well,
messaging or the real type of like
yeah. So what's considered toxic? So for instance, I completely sober on a panel. Somebody accused me of being a bad person, and I said that they should stick a broom up their ass. So I was sober, so I didn't catch anything. I would hope that that person would think that my threat of violence was metaphorical. At least they seemed to think that it was metaphorical. But if I was doing something similarly while intoxicated, what's the difference? And where's the line? So, for instance, if I've been drinking and I'm getting a little edgy, getting a little rhetorically spicy or something like that. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's like half of
half of
Twitch
Twitch.
politics is saying hyperbolic shit like that. That's kind of the draw.
I think that the limit is like there must be some type of like reasonable uh anything what a reasonable person would arrive. Like if you're just continuously, I don't know, slamming six packs the entire stream, I don't know if that should be a thing on Twitch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If you're continuously like taking shots or, using X drug, I don't know if that should be on Twitch, right? At like,
Mm-hmm.
because again, you may be fine, but I think that Twitch, or I guess YouTube, or the common streaming platforms, I'm not sure if that's really the type of behavior that you want to encourage, right? You can make a space for it, but I don't know if that's okay. Even if you deem yourself, even if you deem yourself to be fine, then nothing wrong.
I'm just hearing a lot of subjective judgments. That's what I keep hearing. That's why I keep pushing back on you. So for instance, like a lot of people don't view alcohol consumption negatively. A lot of people don't view marijuana consumption negatively. A lot of people have different definitions for what constitutes a significant amount of narcotic consumption.
Yeah.
And while you're saying like creating these spaces, effectively we're still conceding that these spaces should exist. So if I have
Oh yeah.
Connor's 420 bong hour, where all we do is we just sit around and we talk about space aliens and rip out of bongs, then that's what we do. And there should be a space for that. It should just maybe be behind an NSFW or an age restriction.
There you go. That would actually be a perfect solution. Make a space for it. Either make a new platform for it, or Twitch makes a completely separate section where this is fine. Like, I just don't think that in this iteration of Twitch or YouTube or whatnot, I don't think that in this iteration it should be it should be it should be a thing. So yeah, there you go. There's a solution right there. You can make a completely separate space where all of this is okay. Everybody can indulge exactly how they want. And it'd be great, Hey, I'm in favor of that. It could be a separate thing. It could be a completely different website. It could be Twitch creates an entire different face where it says, okay, you cannot be X years of age or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a completely separate thing. Then yeah, sure.
Okay. So what's your beef? Is your beef like primarily that like people are getting fucked up? Is it that we're exposing it to kids? Is it that it's alongside gaming content? What's the primary beef?
I think that it's like a little bit of everything. Like I don't feel that Twitch is a necessarily like appropriate place for that because of that. Twitch is primarily like there's a lot of young people, and I think that the way Twitch is, it can encourage the streamer to further fall down like if they're already on the edge of, like, for example, alcoholism, their own community can kind of like push them without even realizing, saying, hey, I'll give you bits for this, bits for shots. I've even seen
Why would we not apply the same logic to like titty streamers? Why would we not apply the same logic to sex?
They didn't they?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know. I get Twitch compilation suggestions in my YouTube all the time. That's just like titty streamers, just like hanging out, making jokes, like making solicitous jokes, making promiscuous jokes, vibing with their chat, like all that kind of stuff, and basically like, so they're essentially what I would say is they're doing the version of like everything except for the bong rip. Like in like sexuality, like they're literally like they're like, hey, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing.
Yeah, and
but,
you know what?
Welcome to the thing. You can't have that thing, but you can have this thing. And like that's like that's what I'm saying is like a lot of this mentality. I don't know. Would you like invert your rationale if we were talking about sex, or would you maintain the same position that like titty streamers and NSFW streamers, all that kind of stuff should have their own space where we're not combining video games with tits?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, do we have that?
Jury, so go ahead. You have the last 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
We have that. And we have that. And again, nothing against nothing against those streamers. Of course. We all love I mean, come on, guys. We all love
some titties.
And of course the huge bong rips and of course my beef isn't with the drugs themselves, okay, and my beef isn't necessarily with the NSFW content that somehow gets passed by. I just think that they have spaces for that, obviously that's why we have websites for these things.
Okay. Fair enough. Then no, I'm okay with that. I just think it's funny that I'm kind of like the I don't want to say like I'm a social conservative. I'm probably nowhere near social conservative, but I do have some really strong feelings about what my child is exposed to, and I'm happy that you're intellectually consistent enough that like titty streamers need to have their own channels too. Oh my god, I'm happy with intellectual consistency.
I mean, yeah,
we're gonna go
that's
into,
the thing we do.
We're gonna go into what's called a jury, which is where the judge, me, and the chat have some questions for you. Either both of you can answer unless one of you specifically has been asked to answer. Okay, and this is this. It's clear that opposition's position is that do it, but do it off Twitch. Do it off Twitch. That would be the solution. That seemed to make both sides suggest that might be a good solution, or a conservative solution, as you say. But the problem is happening on Twitch. So is moving everything off Twitch or banning substance use for opposition? Is that being draconian to ban substance use? And is moving it off Twitch defeating the purpose of the open space of Twitch?
I got answers, but if you want to go first.
Yeah, I don't think that they'll be able to necessarily ban everything and anything. And I don't know if Twitch is necessarily an open space, because if it was, we'd have like other content that's generally like in other places. So I don't know if Twitch is necessarily an open space, and I still stand that I don't know if I'm comfortable that saying that, like, yeah, you know what, everybody should just be allowed to um abuse substances and abuse alcoholism. That's the key distinction word, though. Abuse.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's kind of where we're probably agreeing too much. Is I don't think he really has a problem with use. I don't really have a problem with use. Also, he kind of addressed my infantilization thing. So basically, like, I don't care if this is on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, but I do want it to be at least like 18 and up. I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't think 17-year-olds should be getting tips on how to be better stoners or how to be better titty streamers or how to be better alcoholics. Like, I don't think that's appropriate for minors. And I understand the uncomfortability with the cross section between like youth video games and maybe like some suggested streams, like either politics or drug or titty streamers or something like that. And it's something that I'm uncomfortable with too, because frankly, I think there's a lot of young men. I would analogize this to the sex thing. I think there's a lot of young men who have unrealistic expectations of the kind of women that they can interact with because they're interacting with titty streamers, and they basically develop a parasocial relationship that they could be sending towards human females IRL in their world, but instead they develop parasocial relationships with women who capitalize off of their looks. So I am perfectly okay with throwing this behind an age restriction. I am also perfectly capable with basically rhetorically beating the shit out of coomers and drug addicts and saying like, hey, like, just because it's acceptable, just because you're free doesn't mean it's good. And that's kind of where I would want the positive and negative examples to exist if we were just talking about narcotics. But I'm a former law enforcement officer. So of course, when somebody is in like threat of death or great bodily harm, I'm going to want to intervene. So, I mean, I would hope that no matter how anarchic a person would get, they would still want some level of like intervention once somebody actually starts being a threat to themselves or others. So,
and both of you, briefly, 2 minutes. What is the definition of harm?
I mean, I was literally about to Google it, but like harm, basically like negative outcomes for a person. I literally just Googled it. Physical injury, especially that which is deliberately inflicted. So for me, like, but that's where like harm for me is like, I did harm to myself as a youth all the time. I smoked cigarettes, drank alcohol. I had premarital relations. Like I did all sorts of harmful shit, but I derived value from it and I derived experience from it. And that's kind of where I don't want to have this like taboo relationship to narcotics, because I think it's incredibly toxic to our culture, where we just say, "Oh, kids, don't engage in like sex, or don't engage in drugs, or don't engage in alcohol, but this is just for adults," and then we never teach young adults how to navigate these spaces. And I think that's what's toxic.
Correct, but nobody's saying that. We're just saying like maybe it just doesn't belong on Twitch. I don't believe that necessarily.
But what if we shift the space? So let's just shift the space. Okay, so does it belong on YouTube?
Probably not.
Does it belong on Pornhub?
That's not a website for that.
Why not? It's a
There's a
it's a
specific-
website. Wait, does it belong on OnlyFans?
OnlyFans, I think you could do anything, right? For subscriptions. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine because that's literally that's literally the purpose of that website.
Damn. All right. Well, he just won me over. So,
Like,
I'm
if I'm
like,
correct,
really?
let's
if
let's
I'm
move
correct,
all the titty streamers and all the drug streamers over to OnlyFans.
If
You
I'm
won me
correct.
over. And
if I'm correct, right? OnlyFans,
Yeah.
you literally can do anything. Like, it's just a subscription site, right?
sweet.
Mhm.
Perfect. We'll get all the coomers and drug addicts off
Okay.
of Twitch, and they can all go to OnlyFans.
Yeah.
And yet still.
Oh, I'm sure
the
we have
difficult-
plenty of furious people.
I think you're winning
That's okay.
everyone over at this point. ADT,
That's okay.
what is your definition of harm? It was asked, so can you give it to us now? What is the definition of harm?
Yeah, exactly. And it just exactly that. Anything that's deliberately, like any injury that's deliberately inflicted upon yourself or anyone else. Exactly it. And I think that drug addiction is inflicting injury on yourself and sometimes others.
Okay. Why not just, since we're responsible adults, Counterpoints as a parent doesn't really pull out the bong and the serious booze, etc., in front of the kids. Why can't we just act like parents and just keep our drunk nights in Discord?
Okay.
No.
This is a question from chat.
Sorry, no. I reject this because basically, like the whole thing is not to be private. I don't want to be private. And the only reason why I'm agreeing to the OnlyFans solution is because I'm a fucking conservative who doesn't want 16-year-old kids watching titty streamers. That's why. That's why I agreed to the OnlyFans solution. But no, like we need to have open conversations and open displays of narcotics consumption. We need to have open displays of healthy relationships. The problem is the mystery. That's part of the problem. It's like, so I'm not saying like we need to go out of our way to educate 15-year-olds on narcotics, how to consume narcotics well, but that's part of the problem is because you're not giving them any of the information on how to be an adult, manage your affairs properly, manage your consumption of narcotics or your physical relations properly. They're saying, oh, well, I'm not getting any of the good information from the adults, so I'm just going to make it up as I go along. And you have people like myself when I was younger put themselves in incredibly dangerous situations, whether that's consuming narcotics or in physical relationships, just because they don't know any better. And that's my fear with this this ban, like this push off of like narcotics consumption or sex, is that like you're basically all you're doing is you're delaying maturity, you're allowing ignorance to dominate the younger generation as they come up, and as a result, they're going to make more horrific choices than if you showed them how to do it responsibly. That's my fear.
Oh, I totally agree. So teach them. So teach them as a parent or as an educator.
Even as a streamer though. So for instance, like I actually have somebody who watches me, really nice guy, and he said that he's a fan of mine. He's 43 years old, and his 14-year-old son is a fan of mine as well. That's terrifying because I cuss way too much. But at the same time, like if somebody in their teenage years watched me get with friends, have an Among Us stream or a Halo Combat Evolved stream, we have a 6-pack, I get a little lit, a little fun, and then we just have good times playing video games. I think that's like a perfectly normal teaching experience to a young adult, that just because you're hanging out with your friends and having a good time doesn't mean you have to get blackout. And just because you're consuming alcohol doesn't mean you have to do shots. And just because like that's the message that I think needs to be taught is everything in moderation, including moderation. That's the lesson that needs to be taught.
Okay, but I feel like also that's not a situation where it's clear that you're bringing like any type of problem necessarily. The focus of that is your gaming content at the time or whatnot. I don't think, like someone pointed out, hey, if someone smokes weed in a smoking area in public, then that's fine. That's why we have spaces for this. I don't.
So okay, but if we moved everything to OnlyFans, then I would possibly not be allowed to consume alcohol on Twitch because it's not a friendly space for it.
Why wouldn't you be able to? The problem isn't the consumption. The problem is the overconsumption.
Okay. So then I guess my follow-up question, you might have already answered it, but your follow-up question is, if somebody is getting blackout, then they get banned and they have to take their bullshit to OnlyFans, or if they're explicitly doing narcotics-related streams where they're like, this is my particular brand of whiskey that I distilled in my backyard and all that kind of, you're saying that shit doesn't belong on Twitch.
Correct.
Okay. What about, well, and then I'm just pushing back because I'm testing your hypothetical. What about YouTube? Because YouTube is often viewed as an educational space. So there are people who create distilleries in their, backyard and they create alcohol. So what's the difference between Twitch and YouTube? Is it age? Like, is YouTube the boomer platform?
You got me. YouTube does have a little bit more run with it because
More
YouTube
boomers?
no, it's not only that. Like YouTube doesn't have a specific thing to it, right? YouTube is like just this massive platform where a whole bunch of things exist. Twitch has a very specific purpose in terms of like when you think of Twitch, like people's heads automatically go like, oh yeah, this is like a video game site. Like secondary are other stuff that happens on Twitch, but like when you think Twitch, these are the things that you think about. Video games, Among Us, all this other stuff, right? YouTube
Are you a
is
Twitch
little
spokesperson? Are you defending Twitch right now?
I am a. Okay. So full disclosure,
No, I'm
I
kidding.
am
I'm fucking memeing.
I am a Twitch employee. You got me. So I guess
No,
the gig
okay,
is up.
but then that's an interesting point because then Twitch might be pushing the platform in a certain direction, and that might be an explicit direction.
Maybe.
So yeah, so like, is that the explicit direction that they want? They don't want politics. They don't want cooming. They don't want drugs. They want
It
video
could very
games.
well be.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, they could say like, you know what? This is a video game site. What are you politics people doing here? They might actually, they have that complete possibility of that happening. I'm just saying that.
Let me revisit. Let me cut that one short. Interjection with that. Sorry, not interruption. Actually, let me go back to something. If this is a learning lesson, a learning experience where you don't hide things, you explain things to your young people. Yeah, who on Twitch is going to accept the responsibility of explaining substance abuse and use to young viewers?
Me. No, but like, I know that's a little bit of a meme, but yeah, like I think older people need to accept responsibility. It's our job. It's our job.
Are you saying that it is the streamer's responsibility, therefore,
Yeah,
to handle substance use responsibly and or either avoid it, or if they're going to exhibit, to then explain the context?
100%.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah, isn't that exactly my argument where it's your responsibility, so therefore maybe this is not the space, and like
No.
if like
Sorry, go ahead.
if so, maybe we could say you're not necessarily indulging, but the reverse. Instead, you're having an educational stream where a streamer can do like educational stuff that's different. I think that's a completely different thing. Maybe educational streams are okay, where people can talk about their experiences and people can then have that type of connection to a younger audience or whatnot. Like that's a whole other thing. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, then this is what I'm talking about. Yes, I do think it's the Twitch streamer's responsibility to not necessarily like every single time they bust out a beer to explain like, hey kids, this is alcohol. But at the same time, to basically, one, demonstrate like responsible behavior. Yeah, absolutely. And number two, if there's problematic behavior or something like that, or alternatively, if they notice problematic behavior in their audience, or somebody memes about like binge drinking or something like that, hell yeah. Especially as like older people, because effectively what we have, this is what we have, like analysis paralysis, and we also have, I think Elon Musk calls this the NBA-ification of America. Everybody's waiting for somebody with a fucking master's degree to walk down and tell them how to live. And that it's such wasted, wasted energy. There are so many young people who are looking for any fucking level of guidance on how to conduct themselves publicly or privately, that basically, as long as you're not giving them advice that you think causes harm, I would invite you, especially if you're a millennial like me, you're in your 30s or 40s, if you feel like you learned a lot of things from like toxic and bad habits and bad lessons that you had as a child, don't wait until you have your master's degree in psychology to share your experiences. Obviously, caveat the fuck out of it and say, hey, listen, I'm just an idiot with a webcam. What do I know? But that being said, here's what I think. And I think millennials are terrified to share anything that they've learned with Zoomers. And the truth is, nobody's coming to save us. The boomers are almost dead. Gen X is really small. Millennials are the next big political wave. And we are going to be raising Gen Z. And no offense, but Gen Z doesn't know its ass from its elbow. So yeah, absolutely. Twitch streamers should be taking every opportunity to teach the young folk how to do things correctly and in a nuanced way.
Right. The keyword being teach. Yeah, you're right.
Do you want to add? Sorry, ADT, you want to add on to that answer?
Not much. I think that there's absolutely a difference, and teaching, sharing your experience and saying, hey, this happened to me, or kind of like what the panel was doing earlier. Yeah, that's perfectly that's what should be happening. And I totally agree with that.
Proposition. The jury sees no negatives to banning substances on Twitch other than impinging on personal freedoms. Can you convince them otherwise? What are
Sure.
the negatives to banning substance abuse other than restricting personal freedoms?
Who wants to go first?
They're asking proposition.
Okay, cool. All right, so jury, first off, screw you. Number two, I think I've been articulating this point the entire time. The point is that you're infantilizing Americans, you're infantilizing children, you're infantilizing teenagers, you're infantilizing adults. You're telling them that they are incapable of handling mild narcotics use. You're telling them that they don't know what responsibility is. They don't know what moderate consumption is. You're saying that because there's a few people who can't handle their substances on Twitch, who are likely banned, and who, as soon as they're reported, and who we can create a mechanism for to report them if they're in a crisis situation, then you're saying that those people have effectively ruined our opportunity to educate young people and educate like young adults about narcotics consumption. And shame on you, jury. Shame on you. And then finally, there was another point there. Basically, like, if this trend continues, we are going to perpetuate the toxic cycle of what we have already, which is basically we are not sharing with the young people how to be responsible adults. You can't be surprised when they're total fuck-ups when you never show them in any of their popular culture consumption how to be an adult. I reject this fundamentally. Stop babying American children and American adults. Yield. Jury.
Ity, do you have a response to that? Jury.
No.
That was a jury member who came in, dropped it, dashed. So
nobody.
I will fight that jury member in the parking lot, and I will be completely sober while doing it.
Nobody says that you should. Them again. No, but nobody's talking about nobody's infantilizing or talking about infantilizing like America or whatnot.
We already do.
I don't know, maybe in other conversations with other people, but that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying that specifically on these type of platforms, I'm not sure it's appropriate, because like infantilizing would be like, oh, you know what? The entire, like, in every single type of instance, that's it. No more drug use in media, no more drug use on television, no more drug use on radio, no more drug use on here, no more drug use on here. Like, at that point, like, yeah, of course. Like, wait, no, that's that's not what we're suggesting.
Hmm.
I'm just saying it doesn't really necessarily have like a spot on Twitch.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, of course, you can't infantilize people or like tell a teach them about something without like being real about it. But that's not what I'm suggesting.
That answers another question from the jury, which is, what are you going to ban? Smoking and drinking, and then cursing, and then the next thing you know, there'll be no chat whatsoever. Okay.
Oh no,
So
that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
slippery slope
I believe
Do
that's
fallacy.
not ban
satisfied.
profanity. I will be off of Twitch the following day.
No, that's a slippery slope fallacy.
Eddie Izzard's response to banning smoking in French clubs, he said, "Oh, first no smoking, next thing you know, no drinking and no talking." So,
No, slippery slope fallacy.
slippery slope fallacy. The last question from the judge, because we're the jerks of the crowd, is simple. Twice our opponents here have found agreement, which is surprising and very clever strategy. If it's agreed that, oh yeah, a reporting system should be in place, there could be a space for these things, perhaps off Twitch. What is the main point of contention between the two of you as we move into letting you battle to the death, so to speak? What is the main point of contention between the two of you?
My point is, I think like saying that like Twitch isn't a space for this, I feel is like pretty arbitrary. I think you could come up with plenty of reasons why it's YouTube isn't a place for this, or basically a whole bunch of other platforms aren't a place for this, and not just that, but like we're both taking a very centrist argument. So, for instance, my opponent ADT is basically saying that he's okay with narcotics consumption on Twitch, which I think kind of concedes to my perspective. But at the same time, he just doesn't want people getting lit and being dangerous. I think this is a very reasonable perspective. It's very hard to argue against. But I don't know. Does that mean that I'm fighting a straw man if I accuse him of like anything else besides that position? It's hard to fight against when we both agree.
Right. But I think that there is like I feel like there is some contention in the fact that like correct me if I'm wrong, but like you would be okay with like these things happening, whereas I wouldn't. The solution is
the reason. Yeah, sorry. The reason why I would be okay with these things happening. So, for instance, like leaving it as is TOS wise, where like you can't do anything that would like hurt you, and that's just the TOS, and we use it very vaguely. Is because I think we've outlined a dozen scenarios in which narcotics consumption is acceptable, and it's not the narcotics consumption that's the problem. It's the crises that the narcotics consumption triggers. So I'm okay with banning the crises, but not necessarily the substance. And that's kind of where I'm at. And if you put that behind like an NSFW wall, an age restriction or whatever like that, I think it's just smart. Like I don't show my 3-year-old son, I don't show him NC-17 movies or whatever. Like there's a time and a place, and that place is called college.
Okay, so it seems like our ideas are where they're clashing in the sense that like you would be fine with like streamers doing whatever it is. The solutions, however, is where the agreement starts to happen. I think. I think that's the thing, because like we have like we have conflicting like things where like no, you should be able to get lit on stream, and like nobody should stop you or anything like that. Versus I'm saying, well, maybe there shouldn't really be a place for this, and then that's where the agreement comes in. Like, okay, then let's make a space for it, and like that's the end of it. So I think like that's where we agree.
Sure.
That's where you come together in agreement. So this cross-examination is where you come apart in disagreement. So you have a goodly bit of time to convince the judge and the jury that something could be done about this and convince them of what should be done about this. Since both of you are Twitch streamers or have been Twitch streamers, you're on social media. Okay, so do you need a break before you go into your actual cross-examination?
No, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's do
Good
it.
to go? Okay. These answers are 2 minutes long now.
Okay. And then do you want me to start as a proposition?
Proposition can start.
Go for it.
Okay. And then am I asking him or am I trying to convince you guys of my position?
You're going to want to convince us that of your position, that something should be done, or of what you want us to do about it.
Okay. All right. So the main thing, sorry, I knocked out my earbud. The main thing that I think we agree on, so I'm just going to steal all the words out of ADT's mouth, is basically that we need improved reporting. There needs to be a reporting function that's capable of dealing with like real-time crises if somebody is suicidal, homicidal, suffering a drug overdose. Any person who is a streamer on Twitch should probably have a verified address or a verified phone number. That way, if first responders, medical personnel, all that kind of stuff need to get to a site quickly, they know where to go. That way, if there's a crisis report, hey, this person's actually doing something dangerous, we don't know whether or not they're going to hurt themselves or hurt other people, that report can get fed up to Twitch. Twitch can go ahead and notify first responders. Maybe it's even automatic. Goes to first responders, and then at that point, first responders can check in on the person who's undergoing a crisis. I think we agree on that. Where we don't agree is basically on the narcotics. I understand that that one jury member or whatever jumped in and said, like, well, why do we even have narcotics consumption to begin with? And I've already said this point multiple times. I'll say it again. We are dealing with young people, whether they're young adults or they're teenagers, and we're trying to show them the way to be an adult. I don't think that consuming alcohol makes you a bad adult. Almost every adult I know consumes some level of alcohol, even if it's rare. I don't think that consuming marijuana makes you a bad adult. I think probably 20 or 30% of the people I know consume marijuana. So it's not the drugs that's the problem. It's the way that they're consumed and whether or not people are creating artificial crises. So if you improve the reporting, you can leave the system as is. People can consume narcotics in a positive way that teaches the next generation how to act as adults, and then there's not much of a problem. And with that, I yield.
I just have like one simple statement. Why does that have? What does that have to do with, like, in terms of like being on Twitch? Like, that's not what Twitch is about. So although it's true that, of course, people need to be taught these things and stuff like that, I don't feel like it's Twitch's responsibility or anything like that. So why are we like, why are we indulging that? Or in other words, as the opposition, why would I want that even like on Twitch? It's not Twitch's deal in terms of like teaching you about these things.
I can respond to that, but I don't know if that's rhetorical or not.
You can just respond as you interpret it.
Okay. Yeah, no, it is your responsibility. So these spaces or whatever, these are platforms. These are like if Twitch wants to come out and say, hey, we don't want this garbage on our platform, that's their right as a private company. I don't really care. But at the same time, as long as there's the freedom where the TOS has not been enforced about narcotics or alcohol or whatever, you have a responsibility. Yeah, like we all have rights. We also have to combat, or we have to balance those with responsibilities. So if at this time and going forward, people are going to be able to consume narcotics on Twitch, then if they're going to be allowed to do that, then you need to be able to deal with the crises that those people are individually undergoing with. And you also have to concede the fact that while this might be primarily a video game space, there are also people who are creating alternative spaces using your platform, whether that's titty streaming, drug, narcotics, politics, whatever. These spaces exist. So until you explicitly ban them, you're responsible for them.
True. I mean, true. So, like what you're saying is basically like, Twitch. If Twitch allows these things, they should be responsible for them. Correct. So, in other words, why it be there? Why it be there in the first place, right? And again, I'm not talking about like casual or like, oh, one person had a beer or two on stream. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where it leads to harm. So why would Twitch want to take that responsibility, knowing exactly what you just said?
Because harm is arbitrary. Like basically, like I mentioned before, like I'm an incredibly heavy guy. You might not be able to tell whether or not I'm destroying my liver slowly through drug consumption. You're looking for like observable behavioral metrics for like when people are fucked up or crossing the line or something like that. And that's what I'm saying is like it's either all good or it's not good. Like you can't say, oh, you can have 2 beers. Like no, like you gotta come up with a line, and that's where the 2 things that I'm dealing with right now that I feel are kind of arbitrary is 1, Twitch isn't a space for that. Well, it's a space for that right now. 2, basically, I'm only interested when people harm themselves. Well, harm is subjective. So basically, like, what I view as harmful, you might not view as harmful. What Twitch views as harmful might not be harmful. You keep using an objective reasonableness standard, but part of objective reasonableness is that you can contend over what's reasonable. So I would, and like also as a streamer, how are you supposed to deal with that rule? I can get drunk as long as it's reasonable. Like that's weird because like I mentioned before, I'm verbally abusive. I use profanity. I'm an asshole. Like I call people out. If I'm sober and I do those things, it's acceptable. But if I have a 6-pack and I do those things, is that worthy of me being banned? And that creates like a completely arbitrary nature to the platform where people just don't even know what to do because you haven't given them any rules.
But the difference is it is setting a behavioral pattern. I'll give you another example. If for example, a streamer streams 5 days a week and passes out 5 days a week, that's kind of a problem. That's why they don't allow you to like sleep through your streams, because it could be a sign that hey, something may be wrong or something like that. But if you like black out 5 days of every stream, I mean, I don't know if like that should be encouraged.
Sure, I don't think it should be. We're coming up with descriptions that or descriptions or prescriptions that I think would be obvious. I'm trying to push into like the gray area because like you can't just say like, oh well, no blacking out. What happens if somebody blacks out unintentionally? What if somebody passes out just because they're tired and not because they're drunk? You can't tell the difference. But like again, like you can look at repeat behavior. Maybe that's what you said that is actually like I think could be valuable. Is like repeated behavior could be used as a metric for banning people or muting or kicking or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Exactly.
That's another positive solution.
I don't know if I'm comfortable like just allowing like people, especially like I can just like see like large audiences and stuff like that who engage in a behavior and have influence over a large audience. And a large audience can have influence on a streamer, so on and so forth. I could see that potentially being a problem.
Sure, I think that's very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, UD, that's all I got. I'm not gonna fight him and be like, no, you should be able to like do rails of cocaine in front of your audience. You should be able to get fucked up and start talking about like Jewish space lasers. Like, no, it's not my position.
Oh man!
Listen, I love doing cocaine and talking about Jewish space lasers, but I don't think that should be on Twitch.
I think I have to say it's exactly what is on Twitch. So, ADT, ball's in your court. It looks like your opponent is saying that's what he's got. Those are his arguments. And what is your counter to these?
I guess like what I
Find
would
out
say,
what you're going to convince us to do or not do.
what I would convince people to do, and I don't know if like if we really have that much of a disagreement on this on what we should do. It's just like I think we keep going back and forth
Uh-huh.
on like the gray areas of where the lines are drawn in the sand,
Uh-huh.
which is where the push and pull comes, I think. But like if I start saying, hey, maybe we should have a separate face of Twitch where this can occur, a completely separate face that maybe even owned by Twitch, that's fine. Where this type of like NSFW over X age can occur, sure, but I will still say people as content creators like must be responsible. What you say, how you say matters. What you do matters, even if you have 1 viewer or 1,000 viewers. I think that these type of things have like ripple effects and ramifications, and I just think that people should be, at least in terms of like where this platform is, should be held like to dare I say should be held to like a certain like just kind of standard or whatnot.
Okay.
The reason why you're not getting a lot of pushback from me is because like I am a person who believes in standards. So I think people should be able to have a couple of beers and play video games with their friends and maybe even get a little fucked up and a little edgy, but I don't want people shooting up heroin on stream and then like me having to fucking defend them. Like, no, heroin is a part of life. You need to teach 17-year-olds how to consume heroin safely. Like, no, get that shit out of here. Like, no,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't disagree.
right. Like again, I don't think like the one beer that you had on stream is the problem, right? It's the consistent behavior of someone constantly getting. I keep going back to alcoholism, but whatever. Constantly getting drunk on stream and constantly behaving in a clearly person who should shouldn't be doing this on stream consistently and verifiably with VODs, that this person just continuously does this, and they should probably not be allowed to do that on Twitch.
Okay. So one side has said just ban it and take it off of Twitch entirely. The other side has said, yes, sure. If you do that, then there's no responsibility. There's no opportunity to teach people responsibility. So one is a draconian ban where it's just moved off to its own little room somewhere, completely out of the main foot traffic of Twitch. And the other says, no, bring it out there in public and use it to open up a conversation. Use it to talk about responsibility. And these two are very civil people, but they do have some differences in the way that they think this problem should be addressed. So we don't have too many people, but of those people in chat, take it off of Twitch, like move it all onto OnlyFans, or improve the reporting. In particular, get an address and a phone number required for signing on to a Twitch account. So in case something goes really bad, they can be contacted, and use it as a learning experience. So for proposition, use it as a learning experience, improve reporting, get addresses and phone numbers. That's a 1. For taking it off of Twitch, either banning it or putting it onto something like OnlyFans, that's a 2. So for those people in chat, your jury, would you please vote for which solution you prefer? And we'll give them a few minutes. If you guys want to kind of take a little minute
Sure.
for yourselves. Okay. So let's see what you have to say. 1 is counterpoints, learning experience, phone numbers, improve reporting, and 2 is nope, take it off of Twitch, put it on OnlyFans. That's a 1. That's a 1 for you.
Thanks, friend.
Let them drink on. It takes them a minute. They're gonna think about it. Songbird 1, unless it becomes bad, I'll move to 2. There's your century.
Wait.
Songbird, what do you have to say? Take it
That's
off
my
and put it on
position.
OnlyFans, or do some phone number collecting and improve reporting and use it as a learning experience. Yeah, and you can also give critiques of the speakers, because ADT had barely a chance to sit down and get this together, and was really gracious about willing to sit with Counterpoints, whom we all know can shred you if you choose to. He's being nice. That's fine. It's a very serious issue.
I try to start nice, just like people like when I get triggered, I promise you to all the people watching at home or whatever, if you see me getting triggered, like I'm actually triggered, like I'm not fucking faking it. Like literally somebody said some shit that was just off the fucking wall, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
exploding. So.
Well, I don't really
will
say off
pull
the
his ear
wall
out.
stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah, if ADT was being more of a dick, maybe I would have yelled at him, but he wasn't. So what am I supposed to do?
That's
Like
just,
make
that's just not how he is. That's not
yeah.
how he is. He may be difficult, but he is the truth. Okay, so what do we
True.
got? Songbird, 1 or 2? And all the rest of the people in chat. Let's find out who convinced who the most. We have to give him a minute. It always takes him a minute.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I've actually never seen you debate. I know that you've
Oh, I
been
have.
on several panels.
Every day.
And I've caught like small snippets, and usually those snippets are the you yelling at everybody on the panel snippets. I mean, like, actually just yelling at everybody on the panel. I don't even know what the debate is on. I'm walking in here, and I see Counterpoints like yelling at everybody. So like that's like kind of like how
The
the
vibe.
few moments that I've seen. That's not really, I guess, a accurate description, but you know, for the few moments,
It's
it's
accurate,
funny.
but you just actually have to say some dumb shit for me to get triggered by. So if you don't say dumb shit, like I'm not gonna lose it. Like what am I? You know, like that's my thing. It's like,
Okay, so wait,
oh man,
wait, I didn't say. Okay, so wait, wait. Hold on. I think I got the
Oh
solution
no, he's
here.
like,
So
wait, what?
I didn't say I didn't say any dumb shit. So therefore, chat knows what to do.
Yeah, no. Hey, there it is.
Uh,
Okay, guys, which is it? These are the outcomes. These are your positions.
yeah, I see like one person went like 1 and then 2.
1 and then 2.
Yeah, the radical centrism. The
it
radical
happens.
centrism.
Radical
Okay,
centrist counter.
but see, I'm a radical centrist, so that counts for me.
Dang.
That counts for that. Okay, guys, put your vote in, and we do have a judge's vote, which kind of doesn't matter, but it's good for feedback. But let's see what you think. Now, Kyle was unconvinced, but he's leaning on 1. He's leaning on 1. Unless the things become bad, then he will shift to 2.
Well, yeah,
Thanks, Kyle.
that's some radical
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
centrism. That's some radical centrism take right there.
So what have you got in there? Put in your votes. We'll give you a minute. Although I
Yeah,
can
this
tell
is my
Songbirds take.
this is my first like debate. So
Oh, this is an easy one for you. This is easy.
Yeah, what was actually fun.
Counterpoints is respectful enough to make it easy for you. But
Yeah, what's funny is I did probably like a month's worth of panel shows, and I just got along with like everybody, and then like there was just like those little incidents that just like fucking trigger the fuck out of you, and then you get Twitch clipped. But hey, that's actually like part of the memes, right? It's part of the game.
well, that's why I disabled the clips on my stream for that reason. I'm like, oh no, you don't. You're not taking me out of context. You're gonna deal with me personally. No way. But we have a lot of hard topics and
Hey,
subjects
shit!
here.
I'm happy that I was big enough to be clipped. That's fun. That's new.
True.
Yeah. Okay, we have a few follow-up questions, but Songbird took objection to who gets to decide what is what is right for Twitch. And so ultimately, for two of your jury, that puts them both with counterpoints. That they're leaning on counterpoints takes. Because they do not like trying to decide what is good, what is right for Twitch. And the other one is they didn't want it taken off Twitch. Okay. So for the people in here, all right, they seem to have leaned more toward counterpoints. However, your comments, ADT made valid points. Yes, they were valid. They're very valid. And they have a question. What topics would you two like to debate in the future?
Well, I guess we'd have to find out where we disagree in points of
Correct.
contention.
I agree with you. You have to find out where. It's surprising that you did find so much agreement. I have to say, I am surprised at that.
Guns, immigration, and like American foreign policy are normally the ones that are like the easiest to trigger me on.
Right. Those are your favorites. How about you, ADT?
I mean, immigration. I guess we could try immigration because I have a feeling we might disagree. I'm completely fine with pro-immigration. In my opinion, it's just like all these people that are undocumented here. Let's just give them back to citizenship. Let's get them rolling. I mean, they've already contributed so much to our country that why not give them that path to citizenship? Why not have a flowing process for immigration and asylum, which is not only legal under U.S. law but international law? Why don't we have that flowing and going? And instead, what we have is inhumane conditions. So yeah, I think that immigration is probably. I don't know if that's a point of contention, but
yeah,
that could be.
Yeah, just to give you a little too long didn't read version of it. I'm a civic nationalist. That basically means that I think there's some things that make America America. My main ones would be the freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, the right to self-defense, including to the government, and also limited government, not like a libertarian sense, but basically that the government follows the actual constitution or the laws that are created for it. I think that it's assumed in Western countries that everybody in the world thinks that's a good idea. There's plenty of people in the world who don't believe in those ideas. And so basically, I think that you should be asked those questions while you're on your way in. If you believe in those things, or if you're open to those ideas and we can educate you into believing those ideas, yeah, sure, come on in, you're a fucking American. But if you're like, no, I want a theocracy, or no, I want, an authoritarian communist dictatorship, or no, I want this, I want that, then, see you, bye, go live somewhere fucking else, because I'm interested in preserving a republic. And I don't think that these values spring out of people's assholes. I think they have to be taught and they have to be culturally reinforced. I don't think a liberal society perpetuates itself just by letting everybody in.
I mean, wait.
That's enough of a difference.
Yeah, that sounds like these people are like coming to do stuff like on purpose.
Look at that!
I don't know.
Counter, you just tricked him into going into a debate with you. Look at that.
See, I'm that good.
He's that good.
Yeah.
I love that you've done that. I appreciate that you're here. The subject was actually very serious to the person requesting it, so it's fine that it was very, very lo-fi tonight. There are people watching right now, carefully off this stream. I don't think you triggered them, so I actually appreciate that you kept it like, oh, okay, it's going to be civil and quick and easy. It was an hour and a half long exactly, respect of the time. That's fine. This can be a very upsetting topic that I don't want people getting. Well, you heard them on the panel briefly.
Yeah, I'm happy I showed up a little bit earlier. So if people weren't here earlier for the panel, I'm actually happy I showed up a little bit earlier because I think my original take was going to be a lot more memey, which was basically like, people can get fucked up. Who gives a shit? We're going to, if they fucking shit their pants on stream, or if they if they fucking drink responsibly, it doesn't really matter because you're going to learn a lesson either way. I know that it kind of muted the debate a little bit, that I wasn't as memey, but I think like because we were actually talking about psychological crises, or we were talking about narcotics-based crises, that actually, as a cop, that triggers me a little bit, because I've had to interact with people who were in the middle of like psychological or chemical crises, and I know it's not fun. So, so basically, whether you're the consumer or the first responder who has to deal with that person, or you're a family member who has to deal with that person, that sucks.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make fun of, like, I can get drunk and shit my pants, and that's funny. Somebody who's because it happens so rarely. But if somebody who legitimately has like a fucking problem, that's not funny. That's literally like a fucking.
That's exactly like I guess the serious side to it. You know.
Right. So I do appreciate that you did adjust down. Was the point. Because there were people that were invested in watching and will watch the VOD. Some of them would not watch the debate. They were afraid it would trigger them.
Completely understandable.
I felt that that was yet again, Connor, from you, just another gesture of respect. It doesn't have to have a huge amount of people in the room and be blood sports to be effective. I think that the information from what I'm getting in my own feedback right now, from the information that you've laid out with the two of them, has given them quite a lot to think about. They're the ones that are actually going to be trying to do something, take some sort of action. Your solutions, by the way, were fantastic. The joke about let's go on to OnlyFans is not really so funny. It's actually, okay, can't there be a different space? These things are actually reasonable. These things can actually happen. And so, it is way lo-fi compared to what I'm sure both of you are used to. Because I've heard ADT get very, very hot. And Connor, I've watched you many times pull your hair out. But I appreciate the respect. And I hope let's have a little bit more of a conversation. I'm going to ask you all some stories if you have a little time. But we have a request. What do you guys think about this team? Connor, Tiberius D, possibly CTV, with Outsourced Politics or Kobe, A Difficult Truth, and Socrates.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, let's do it.
That sounds like a dream team. You guys up for something like that? And if so, what topic? We have plenty of motions, but what would you like to choose to go at?
Seriously, like, so my thing is, I know you have the Google Doc and like all that kind of stuff. My problem is literally I do Tiberius on Sundays, I do Reverie on Mondays, and then I have to shoot my own stuff like Wednesday, and I'm producing too much stuff as it is. So my wife already hates me for doing as much as I do. So basically all I need is a subject and a date and a time. Like if you say like, hey, 1 week out, 2 weeks out, this date, this time, can you be there? The answer is going to be yes. I'll make it work.
It's always Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
The time can be either 7 or 9. It is up to you.
7 CST, you're saying?
Yeah.
7 CST or 9. It's up to you.
Yeah, 7 CST is totally fine.
Oh, yeah. I think so, too.
You too?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go after this for that team. I just got to convince Tiberius, I think.
I can convince him, too. I'll tell him I won't show up on Sunday unless he comes.
I think CTV, well, I don't really know him well, but he's been very cordial. Cordial, and his community's strong. If you guys want to team up on that, I have no problem with that. Crowdsource can hold his own. As you know, Socrates comes out swinging. ADT, you really hold your goalpost, but also Kobe. He's been itching to get back in at the table. So I want to have a little bit of a brief and talk with you, kind of just actually natural as grown people. Let me give you my little bit of feedback. Since ADT never trained for this, he sat down, he took his lessons, so to speak, took his cues, whatever. I wanted to say, Connor, even when you're not all fire, you stand your ground on your goalpost. But you can really throw hypotheticals. You really go in there with the questions, even when you're being just soft-handed, which throws a person off. ADT stood on that goalpost of his. He said, yes, but it's got to be off Twitch. I don't care what you're saying. I just want it off Twitch. He never once changed his story. I got to give 100% credit for never changing the story. His motion was, his position was, and he never let go of it, and he did it very quietly. He also grabbed the goalpost back at one point, which was saying Counterpoints had come in with something, and ADT's response was, "Yeah, I got that. Yeah, but actually, yeah, that's my argument." Given what you
Yeah.
just said, yeah, you're right, it should be off. And then Counterpoint sat for 1 second, and I thought, he just grabbed that goalpost, and he did it so slick. That was nice, but missed this. There was a problem in how do you tell the difference between a guy who's an asshole sober and a guy who's an asshole drunk? Okay, at ADT should have been a, well, no, you can't tell the difference. And because you remember in the no and?
Yes,
No, you can't tell the difference. And because you
that's
can't tell
right.
the difference, ban it, and then you don't have to worry about telling the difference. That was the only
Ah,
grab you missed, but you
I,
grabbed all the way, very,
I,
very subtly. So let me compliment you on out of the blue with no prep time, holding your own and being elegant and civil and cordial. You do want a debate to polarize. I agree. Your responses surprised me. It's unusual. There's so much agreement. You think, wow, I came here to fight and I got yes. Well, that's the way that you win sometimes, is you just don't let the guy fight. It's also a strategy. You can agree him to death. This is very hard.
Bro.
If I were asked to judge this, I'd have to say that honestly, I believe that you both equally
No, it
did
was a
what you did well.
it was a
What do
tough
you
fight.
think?
No,
It
it
maybe
like
he wouldn't put up a fight. The only undefeated man is the man who never fought. It's really hard to come when he won't defend himself, right, Connor?
yeah,
So he
and
won't
that
put
was
up a fight.
actually I was almost shocked because like basically
Mhm.
what was going on is like I kept wanting to shove ADT into a position he didn't hold. Like so the position
Right.
that I wanted to shove him into was like, oh well, let's just ban narcotics completely off of the platform. And that probably logically would have been almost like the easier thing. So for instance, like you said, when he like grabbed the goalpost or whatever, that almost would have been the easier thing is like, well, it's such a fucking headache and we can't differentiate. So yeah, let's just ban it all. That would have been easier for me to fight with because I would have
Right.
been able to say, no, we're missing a learning opportunity to teach like young people how to like become
Right.
adults and like all that kind of shit. And I really do feel that. Like I feel that in my bones that like
Right.
we are just not doing a good job of showing young men and women how to be old men and women.
I
Um,
agree with that.
yeah, but that being said, what he did was he was like, "Oh, that's my point. This,
Right.
that, the other," and I was like, "Ah, shit!" Like he's
Right.
like, "How do I, how do I prove that that's my point or something that we
That's right.
agree with?" In the frame of a debate that I know that we're basically being evaluated on how well we construct our arguments.
Right.
And that he was able to do it without really having been sort of taught to do that. That he did it sort of without that debate background.
Yeah,
Yeah,
There's a pretty
literally my
to
first
this.
debate.
Don't let go of the goalpost, and he snatched it.
I'm
I
Irish, so
have to
like
commend
debating,
you're Irish.
arguing
It's
with
in your
people is
blood.
in my blood. Yeah.
But I have to commend it that he so very quietly and gently just said, "Mhm, and you just made my argument for me, thank you." If this had been a blood sport, we know what
Mother.
word that would have been. Motherfucker. Motherfucker. What do you mean? I didn't say that. We could just hear it echoing right now, how that
Yeah,
normally would have
yeah,
gone.
yeah.
But he did it just so quietly and gently.
Mhm.
And I'm always about, look, it's training, everything is learning. So I'm always gonna commend somebody that quietly stands their ground. They don't come in with big guns. They have never done it before. They have a quite a heavy hitter, and they got their hands on that goalpost. So I'm gonna have to say, I don't know if you agree with me, but given the fact that ADT has never done this before, I really want to give him the judge's thumbs up for this performance tonight. However, Connor, your solutions convinced me.
I agree. So basically like I wasn't ready for a few things and I was caught flat footed a couple of times. So even if I didn't seem like it,
All right.
I was caught like the moment that you noticed that I was caught flat
Mhm,
footed was the moment I was
mhm,
actually caught flat footed.
mhm. I'd have to commend him being you might wanna say, you walk in as a featherweight, and this guy's a heavyweight, and I still have to say that points scored, he landed more points.
Mhm.
against the odds. So I want to give the debate to ADT, but you did convince the judge. However, the jury is still firmly on Connor's side, which this often happens.
Yeah.
It's
If you
a
guys agree.
fairly easy point when you're arguing to a bunch of coomers and drug addicts that they should be able to coom and do drugs.
Yeah, that's true. They're all gonna go for it. Yeah. And then to just talk with you. Thanks for sitting through the gaga of it. But just on the topic still, I think I told. I'm not sure who I told. It was Tiberius. Okay. I really hate this topic. I really hate this subject. I really hate it. My other guild director insisted, and it was
Hmm.
only out of respect for her that I agreed to host it. I didn't have moderators to do it because I'm the one that's most likely to get triggered.
Hmm.
And you didn't do that, which I'm glad, really glad. It should have gone way, way, way deeper. Kind of glad that you didn't, to be honest. Being, I really want to hear. All of us have experiences. Kyle gave us stories about how many times he broke ankles and flew off balconies and assaulted his friends and whatnot because that was so many beers worth of whatever coming out of him. But as a police officer, I wondered, Connor, if you could tell us some experiences you've had when you've had to deal with somebody who was intoxicated and did actual danger to themselves or others. Can you give us the real
Oh,
reality
yeah.
check on what it's actually like? Because we don't need to take this as a joke.
It is not.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. So I'll try to keep it vague enough that it's not particularly
Right,
triggering,
correct.
but still
It can be
highlight.
real.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'll
Just don't give
highlight
us a
the.
name. Don't give us a name.
Yeah, so shit. I'll now it's kind of hard to balance. So basically, the worst thing that I've had to deal with is cocaine and cocaine mixed with alcohol. And I think because cocaine is exciting and all that kind of stuff, some people they smoke it, some people snort it, and when it's combined with alcohol, basically you can get super wasted off of alcohol, like basically lose all your inhibitions, and then still have enough energy from the cocaine that you can fight through the depressant of alcohol. And that was part of the
Huh.
problem. So I can think of three circumstances. One of them, I almost shot him to death. He
Oh
actually
boy.
charged me naked in his sneakers and
Right.
screamed at me to
Brilliant.
shoot him. And I fought him. There's actually a story on it on my YouTube channel. Then another one is another guy who was like a lieutenant coke dealer, but he smoked it. Whenever he smoked it, he got into like a rage because his life sucked, and he beat his ex in front of her children, like
Yep.
badly, like
Yep.
severely.
Yep.
Then the final one was a little bit before my time as a law enforcement officer, but I was basically told to avoid this guy like the plague because he was another middle-aged coke addict who basically beat one of my fellow officers so bad that he
Oh
had to
no.
be flown to a hospital. So, but going back to because these are like the most violent or exciting ones or whatever. Just going back to alcohol though, I've had people who were alcohol poisoned who were teenagers. I had DUI drivers who were driving on the wrong side of the road, literally like a 6-lane highway. They were on the wrong side of the road in the middle of the night. They easily could have killed themselves or others. I've had heroin addicts that have overdosed on me. And overall, I think it's really easy for me, as somebody who engages in substance use, but probably not abuse. It's really easy for me to say, look at those people. Like, look at those people fucking up their lives,
Right.
being assholes and idiots. Don't become them. But I know it's a lot harder if you are that person yourself or if it's somebody you love. And that's what sucked about seeing addiction was you can write off the person who has the addiction. Fuck them, whatever. They're making their own choices. They're making their own bed. But there's just kind of this like vortex of like this like spiritual collapse of people loving that person and wanting to save them from themselves and not being
Right.
able to. And that's brutal.
Yes, it is. Did you have to deal directly with the families?
Oh yeah, Absolutely. I've had to tell family members that their family member had
Their
passed.
baby's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the same experiences in my career.
Yeah, it's absolutely
He and
brutal.
he's being very police report summary about it. It's much worse than that.
Oh, I had
Um,
to leave the job because one of the times that somebody passed fucked me up so bad. So like it was
correct. Yeah.
just not
Um,
it's not okay. And even me as somebody who wasn't directly affected, just from seeing the age of the person who passed or whatever, and like the
mhm,
total life circumstances, it fucked me up so bad that like I wasn't. I don't think I dealt with it for like a year, like afterwards, just because the situation was so fucked up.
I'm in well, background on several things, but human rights practice and advocacy, and so yeah, we see the same thing. And
Mhm.
there's always that one case, and
Yeah,
it's that one call that was your last, and then you
I
go off.
stuck. I had to stick around for
Oh,
financial reasons, but I
mhm,
just wasn't the same. And like I
mhm,
knew that my efficacy dropped, and that was scary too because I knew that
yeah,
I wasn't the same person that I was before the incident, and
mm,
I also knew that that was a liability to my peers
yeah, yeah,
and to the
yeah,
public.
yeah,
And so I started looking for a way out. So, like, I still did the job for another year after the incident itself, but that I was still looking for an out the entire time because I basically knew that if I bumped into another situation like that, I wouldn't be able to handle it. I would literally just take off
right,
my belt and walk off the job.
right. It's very similar to military. We all have the same. There's a moment, and we can't do it anymore. So how serious is substance abuse? How serious of a problem do you think it is in this country?
Oh, well, sorry. Now I can start memeing. Like,
Yeah,
so-
now you can meme. Yeah,
sorry. AD, if you want to jump in at any time, go ahead. But
No,
basically, like,
I'm
yeah, no,
sorry.
you can.
The
It's completely
stories
fine.
that I've been listening, uh, Jesus.
What do you think?
I mean,
Right.
we all have like personal we all have like personal stories and stuff like that because like obviously there's a reason why I take the position that I did, even if um even if I'm way like left on a lot of things. There's like personal differences and personal things that affected my position because well I see like one of my best friends who's like a brother is currently or was uh, engaging in like types of abuse at that point, substance abuse and things like that, because he was being egged on because of the lifestyle, and I could see how that type of stuff is enticing, and I could see like we need to address this as a health issue, and being I see it. I equivocated in my head, or I made an analogy in my head between how he performs as a DJ or as a musician, right, and how that is being egged on because of the type of lifestyle, and I could see that being like, oh, I see it happening. I could see it happening where someone could, for entertainment purposes only, could start doing that stuff on Twitch and get money and get donos and get encouraged and so on and so forth. So like that, I don't know if you
Jackass.
noticed, but that,
Jackass. Exactly.
I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of brought that up a couple of times. And
Mm-hmm.
because like obviously that's my personal biases coming in, and that's my personal story. But the stuff that you were talking about is like, I mean, Jesus, like it. I'm sorry, but that's rough. Like, I don't know.
you
I don't
develop a
know.
certain level of sociopathy with it, like
Yeah.
and you're just kind of like the game's the game, like it is what it is, and that's true. Like that's true to a certain extent. Like I don't think about this stuff most days, um, but every now and then it'll just pop up. They'll just be like walking down the street and just boop, remember that thing happened, and
Mm-hmm.
you never really totally walk away from it. And that's also the other thing too that kind of like fucks me up. Like I'm sure UD could probably agree with this.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're still in the work that you used to be in, but you also feel guilty for leaving because you know,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh
yeah,
yeah.
you know that you could still have like a positive impact in this hyper
Yeah.
toxic environment that not a lot of people are equipped with dealing with. And you, at least I did, I egotistically valued myself for being able to psychically handle like a toxic and caustic environment. But then the reality of it is like it's not good for me. It's not good for my family. I did my time. It's time to move on because otherwise that shit will just eat you. It'll just
Yeah,
eat you
well,
alive.
yep, well. Um, we have a lot to say about that. Chat's responding, but ADT musicians, and I'm also a musician. The how many people we've lost to drugs and suicide, for instance, in the music industry, you know,
Yeah.
and it was all, it was enabled the whole time.
Right. So like
So
I
your take on throwing money at the guy to take another shot, and uh, and I have tons of anecdotes about that kid who just wanted to fit in with a one shot too many, you know, and it's gross. Um, so how big of a problem is this? I think it's huge. I think it's swept under the rug because everybody. I'll sit up here and smoke. I'm waiting to see if somebody sees the VOD and says, "Well, you're smoking a cigarette the whole time," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's strategic. I want to see if you're starting to think in context, in the context of the conversation. We'll wait for the feedback." But anyway, um, yeah, the stories are just, I mean, da 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 da. Somebody's asking us to actually have a panel and actually tell the horror stories. I don't know who would be able to hear it or whether
Okay
you
with
should.
it? Yeah, I'm okay with it, but like I don't want like you were saying kind of with like the triggering or whatever.
Yeah, we get triggered. We get triggered trying to retell certain things, right?
yeah. I
PTSD.
can only imagine. I mean
but
I'm
sorry.
Yeah, if you want to see us sit here and get up and have to go throw up and you think that's fucking cool, then if you think you can learn from that, go ahead. Here's your barf bag. We have a
Nice.
body bag sense of humor, especially combat veterans, especially cold-blooded ones where we have to send you
Yeah.
out and we know you're not coming back. So the walking away from them, um, or cutting that mic off and that camera off on that person, and you don't know if they're gonna make it through the night. It still gets to me. Um,
I Yeah,
mm,
I'm lucky in a lot of respects in that way, and I've always been like my parents have always encouraged me to be incredibly open about like my emotions and what I'm thinking and like all that kind of stuff. They're
mhm,
very verbal and expressive people, and I love them for it. But I find it cathartic to like share those kinds of things. But there's some people who just
yeah.
don't. Like either they don't, or the memory is so painful that they're like terrified to even poke at it.
I only think it's cathartic if I'm talking with other veterans or
Yeah.
talking with other militant activists. If I sit around with indigenous people, it's totally
Mm,
cathartic. Certain
mm.
veterans, I'm like, "Oh, it's so good to be able to say these things." We did this on accident where he had veterans at late night, and we were on the doing the stupid shit on the mic night, and then the chat was hanging, and we just ignored them because we thought, "Oh, certainly they'll leave," and we didn't realize that because we had 4 veterans sitting, uh, talking the way we actually talk and
Mhm.
telling those stories. I can't even remember. Once I tell a story, it just pops, and we had no idea that the chat was still sitting there. I was looking at Discord, and then I looked over, and I went and scrolled back, and I thought, "Oh my god." They were absolutely devastated and traumatized, but they wouldn't leave because they didn't think they'd ever hear this shit again, and it totally
Oh, I'll
changed
tell
their
you
whole
everything.
perspective on
Yeah,
veterans, and I went, "Oh, is that good or bad?" And they were like, "We had no idea this is what you went through."
yeah. Oh, and
And they
like
were
in my
crying.
my veteran shit is pussy shit too. Like that's the other thing too is like
The Marines never there's no pussy in the Marines, there's no crying in baseball either, you know?
nah, but that's no, but seriously, like on the scale of what is possible for human violence, like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
my
yeah,
shit
yeah.
is actually relatively tame. And like the people and it's not that it didn't affect me, but I'm a sensitive guy. I have
Wow.
I have friends who's just like their stories are just fucking mind blowing. Like
Well,
they
yeah.
fuck me up, and like I'm just like we're in a peer group, and I'm still fucked up. But yeah,
Wow.
that's another day.
I had one about a flight line accident that I was trying to give an example of our body bag sense of humor,
Oh yeah,
and I can't even tell the story. It's way too. You have to. It's a real. It's like a joke with a punchline, except there's absolutely nothing funny about it. But
I'll probably find it funny.
and all the veterans, we were sitting there and we were all snickering, and I made the joke at the end and one liner at the end, and um, they took it and ran with it. And about that point, the audience actually really they got sick, very sick to their stomach. That's when I realized they were still sitting there. And then I turned around and I thought, well, what must you think of me, huh?
Well,
Because
ADT, I'm not trying to make you feel
I
on the
lost
outside.
half my audience because of that, because they went violence. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like in ADT, I'm not trying to feel you on the make you feel on the outside or anything like that. But that specifically when it comes to like trauma for like veterans or law enforcement officers or first responders or whatever, the thing about it is like the humor and the sociopathy is basically like how we deal with it. So I understand why it would be disgusting for an exterior perspective. So for instance, like within the job, we would have people overdose, and basically the what we would tell each other as law enforcement officers is we would say, "Junkie's gonna junkie," literally, like that. That's what you would say. You would just say,
Jesus.
"Junkie's gonna." Yeah, junkie's gonna junkie. How are you gonna fucking control? And really, while that might be gross from an exterior perspective, what we're really doing is we're depersonalizing from the attachment that
Right.
that human being had the rest of the community.
Right.
I can't think about their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister, the cycle of trauma that threw them into addiction in the first place, the slow spiral of them going down the drain as everybody's watching somebody they love kind of fall into literal hell. I can't think about that, because if I thought about that every single time that somebody died on me, I just wouldn't do the job. Like I wouldn't even be able to wake up. So
Yeah, I
so
don't.
basically that's where the
Right.
depersonalization. Yeah, sorry.
You
Yeah, I'm
have to
here to listen.
depersonalize the function. Same as the military, same as any crisis position, same as human rights. Go ahead, ADT.
Yeah, I'm here to listen because I'm an outsider. I can say, I can empathize, and I can say, oh, wow, like these are just like, geez, these are quite heart wrenching stories. But I am not you guys, so therefore, the only thing that I can do is listen. So I'm completely fine with just listening and trying to, as a human, understand.
It's
Yeah.
people have a hard time thinking, how can you be so cold-blooded and yet, you're a good when you're a streamer and your community starts to get to know you. And in my case, no one really knows me for a reason. I think CTV came in and had completely misjudged me. I was totally shocked to find out everything he thought, was wrong, which is fine. I don't care. But your community gets to know you. So in other words, this is a very awkward position. I'm also an instructor and I have to train people. So I'm used to people, they have to know my past and my experiences. Or they won't be able to do the job either. They have to know what they're in for. But the civilian population, if you will, some of us never really did transition. I mean, I went right from military to militant activist. I didn't have a downtime.
Yeah.
Boom.
Well, it's
I
almost
went
better
from
that
gun to
way, because you don't want to decompress and then have to recompress.
I didn't want to decompress at all. Correct. And then I was martial training the whole time. You're right.
Yeah.
But the effect on the audience is something that I've never really spoken about my military experience or my activism. Only on Twitch the first time. So it puts me in an awkward situation, and I don't mind talking with my colleagues, if you will. But the effect on the audience to me is incredibly disturbing. But we have many indigenous stories about people who have that role, the role of protector. And so I can rely on my my culture and my father's clan, which I'm a member of, and that is our job. And I can fall back on that. I don't know what civilians have to fall back on when they hear things from people they admire, and they cannot believe either the kind of cold-bloodedness or ruthlessness or sheer violence that somebody they actually learn from and admire is actually capable of. It fucks them up. But I always say a difficult truth is necessary. And so I've decided that even though I did lose half the members in my community because they couldn't handle the stories, I decided I came here to tell these stories. And I thought, well, here they are. I'm going to probably lay them on the table. Maybe first time in my life. If I'm wrong, I'm going to take my cards back because it makes me sick to my stomach to have to tell some of them. But then I realized
Nah,
people need to. They need to hear.
I'm gonna push you in
Welcome
that direction because I think this
Well,
is one
give
of
me
the
a
most.
bucket, man. Just give me a bucket, buddy. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, the and this is the frustrating part for me. So I was literally probably one of the times that you saw me get triggered was I was on a panel show, and we were literally debating the morality of like a reprisal airstrike by the United States of America in Syria. In response to like missile attacks literally on the base that I used to be stationed at in Iraq. Like it was literally the fucking base that I used to be stationed at. And we bombed a site in Syria in reprisal for a rocket attack that had like wounded some people or something like that. And basically what was frustrating was we were like myopically focusing on the morality of, well, they attacked us, so we get to kill them. And that was like everybody's point. And I was like, yes, that's correct. But let's zoom out a little bit. The reason why we're there is because of energy policy and our alliances with those nations. We're also being incredibly inefficient with the way that we do things militarily. Not only are we being inefficient with the way we do things militarily, but we have such a large footprint that we're resented in the region. And so that has like a geopolitical blowback feature that kind of makes people hate us, so they attack us, and then we get in this like perpetual cycle of violence. And while I don't particularly give a fuck about the average jihadist, I also ask myself, if I was an American and China just like intervened in America and there were Chinese troops driving in armored vehicles down my street, what would I do? And that's where I'm not kill jihadists. I don't give a fuck. But can we stop the cycle of violence? Can we start thinking about how energy policy affects like American interventionism? Can we zoom out? And can we also concede that who we're killing, even if we hate them, they're human beings? That's the other thing that I don't like is like we pretend that like Eurasia is like the land of Narnia. It's like a place that we can just go drop bombs and kill people. And then we can be like, oh, well, that wasn't real because it was in Middle East and North Africa. Those aren't real people. See ya. And then we just fucking dip out. And that was frustrating because I was trying to make people understand that, and I don't think they were able to.
That was a case I saw again. And like I said, I've told my story. I invited Connor because I watched him try to debate 3 times where he literally, I should say, actually could not get a word in edgewise and was actually just pulling his hair out. And when he tried to start his argument, it's a social club and it's a gamified discourse, and they just wouldn't let him. They just kept, I think they were kind of throwing they were treating him, I guess, like a boomer, I guess, that's what I want to say. And he has the actual experience. He speaks from experience, not about, but this is a game of speaking about. And I finally said, you don't know me, but I'm just sick of watching you pull your hair out, basically. Would you mind? I have a different thing. He came over and we finally got to hear his entire argument laid out for the first time. That particular panel he's talking about, what I remember is that they all protested that oh no, the oil. And they just absolutely dismissed him. And he said, I was there. And then I think he cut his mic. And I went, you're talking to a veteran who was there when these things occurred, and you don't want to hear what he has to say. About that time, that was when I finally said, that's it. I want to try to reach out and get a hold of this. As a veteran.
My solution, by the way, is not like peace and love and hugs and like all that kind of bullshit. It's literally It's literally foreign, like what is it? Foreign internal defense. This is something that the United States Marines does. This is something that Special Forces do. And basically, it's where you take 12 guys, very limited footprint. You go into their security forces, their police and their army. You train their police and their army. You stand behind them, and they're on point. And I think it is a completely morally different scenario if you have somebody trying to help your local community improve from like a security standpoint than it is to have fucking trucks rolling down your fucking road. And if you get too close to those trucks, they shoot out your engine block. I think it is a
Right, I remember
completely
you said that.
different, completely different moral calculus.
I want to know what civilians who grew up watching this crap on video games and movies, which is
Oh, yeah,
completely
well,
unrealistic and excessive. I'd like to know what civilians were. I mean, because I used to have to train, well, and I went to Red Cross. So I used to have to train civilians in mobilization, you know, what to do if you have to be relocated, defend yourself.
hmm.
And I would like to know what the civilians think think they would do if we gave them scenarios and asked them, well, what would you do if? And I really want to hear what they think they could do to see what their responses are, because there's always this shock to realize that once you hit boot camp and you're all in boots and you're committed to your position, and that transition from civilian to soldier and so complete. And whenever I hear that perspective, it's still a shock to me that how different we are, from them, the
Well,
people you're supposed to serve. And I love
my,
to hear that
mhm.
conversation, because that's what makes me feel good. Is I'm not so much needing to purge anything. I had no problem in my service doing anything what I did, but I never thought about the impact on the civilian population, and that's the voice I'm interested in hearing about. I wish we could sit together. I would do it. I would host it on a special day where we could just do that,
I'm done.
because veterans too, paramedics, mothers, people who care for the dying. We all take it just takes a toll. Human rights activists, lawyers,
Yeah.
beasts.
Yeah,
We're all
my frustration with that is like there's this extrapolation of like the macroscopic moral to like the interpersonal violence, and I think that's really silly. And then I also think that the interpersonal violence is so shocking that people will retreat to the macroscopic moral. And by that I mean basically there will be a judgment of like, oh, well, you killed that guy in the name of like globalist capitalism. You are individually evil because you participated in a fucked up system. But then when you start talking about like, okay, well, here's the individual like moral like calculus that I had to do. I was a part of a tribe. I was in a uniform. Somebody tried to kill me. I killed them.
I killed him back.
I killed him back. I was just better than he was. Then there'll be this like retreat to like the macroscopic moral where they'll be like, oh well, like basically it's fucked up that you did any of that stuff because we should only consider this like equation that's infinitely above your head level. And that's I don't know. I feel like that's like an inability to grapple with what interpersonal violence actually looks like.
Correct.
And good for them. Good for them that they never had to consider this or didn't want to consider it. Like, I'm happy for them.
One time I remember, and I was in, if you don't know, ADT, you may know this man, M. Scott Momaday, an author, housemate of Dawn. You might have read his work. He's a highly esteemed laureate and professor. And I had the big honor of waiting 2 years and having the privilege of attending one of his last classes. He's one of those guys. Also a combat veteran in Lakota. And there was a woman who I was friends with, and she knew I'd been what's called a mobility officer. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you're an officer. It means you are the only one allowed to issue the orders to deploy. So there's a line you cross when you get on a plane, and they out process you when they deploy you. and they walk you up. There's a line and a door. The door goes directly, usually in our case, the hatch of the plane, and that's your last civilian. That's your last sort of normal moment, and then you're at war, and that's it. All right. So the only special people are mobility officers, because that's the last person you could likely see. That's home, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You may not even make it in the plane over, whatever. All right. So anyway, so she knew that that's what my last position. That's what I did, right? Right as before I got out. Blah blah. And she came in, and we were talking about the Lakota Code of Honor,
Mm.
and and that was very easy to understand, the Lakota Code of Honor. We were comparing it to the Western Code of Honor, and here's a veteran, here's another veteran, and then everyone else civilian. And there was one young college student, about 22. She was all politically correct as she could be, a vegan and socially. She was woke as f. And but I mean, this is modern times now, right? This woman's clearly distraught. She's sitting next to me, and she's sitting too close to me. And I thought, and she was kind of older college student. And I actually had to say, oh, are you okay? And she whispers to me, my son volunteered to go. I think it was in the Iraqi war. That he volunteered, and that he deployed that morning. So she hadn't slept for 2 days. And here's mom. Here's this woman who I have to sit next to, who for tens of thousands of sons that I had to send, and I never once met their mothers.
Oh,
Do you
God.
know what that did to me?
You fall apart?
Fucked me up so fucking bad. But I'm sitting here with an elder talking about the code of honor. I know what sacrifice is. And I sat there, and the young student had started to go off on a rant. And she was literally, baby killers. Where the hell does that come from?
Oh,
Where did you
well.
get that from? This is like the 21st century, and you're screaming baby killers? She was saying, you have no honor. What have you given up? All you do is kill.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
the
but
woman's
yeah.
looking at her like, how dare you? I can't believe you just said this. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting here going, holy shit, having this. My poor professor was stunned and shocked and speechless. He didn't know what to say. And I had never said a word, because I never do, believe it or not. I sat, never said a word. I said to the mom, I said, hold on, I think I need to say something. And I held my little paw up. And he finally looked at me. He said, yeah, go ahead. And I just looked at her, and I said, the code is to say to give the shirt off your back. That's the code of honor. To deny anyone in need nothing. That's the code of honor. And I said, we took the shirt off our backs. And I said, and this woman's son this morning has taken the shirt off his back, and he's putting his life. He's giving his life. I said, what more do you people want from us? Because we have nothing more to give you. The only reason you're sitting here with your Pell Grant and your student loans, and even the only reason that you're able to pay into this college and have access to all this and like this, okay? All right, is because we went to a war we didn't want to go to. And I said, you can only say this shit because there is no draft. You don't know what that's like. And I said, I managed to survive my service so you could come here and have this conversation and speak out of nothing, because you have no experience with this. While her son is in Iraq right now. And I looked and I said, yeah, he's probably just landed. I can tell you exactly what he's doing right now. I can tell you exactly what his Mobag weighs. And I can tell you that the last thing is on his mind right now is his mom, because if he ever once thought about her, he wouldn't be able to do this. On the other hand, the second he does think about her, he's going to fight like hell for her. And I said, why don't you tell us to our face now how what we sacrifice for you doesn't matter? Go ahead.
Was this all part of the tribe, or was this part of an institution? Was this part of college? What was
Just in the middle of a class.
Yeah.
And I stood up and said, if you'd like me to exit now, I will. It's not a problem. And he said, no. He said, I want you to stay. Thank you. He goes, by the way, welcome home. And he looked at the girl and he said, I really think you should leave.
Yeah.
And so And that was
Yeah.
the worst confrontation, and it was just that quiet. But that was the worst thing. I've never felt like that again, and I was caught off guard. So I said, I'll never let that happen again. I've never felt like that except recently on Twitch. And I had the chat coming in after, hearing the military service and stuff, and they came in, they said, abolish the military. And I said, yeah, abolish the military. That would, sing John Lennon to me too. And then they went, no, why don't we just, abolish the soldiers? Why don't we just get rid of soldiers? Why don't we just get rid of them? Because then if there aren't any soldiers, there isn't a war. And I kind of went, I think I've hit my limit in what I can put up with.
Hmm.
And that was about 3 weeks ago. But I had to wonder. I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. If you threw a war and nobody came, we would have a war, would we? And I said, but that's why we have a remote war. On the other hand, all that we went through and all those dead sons and daughters, mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts, and all of those deads and busted, broken people, shot to pieces. You're back to spitting in their faces and calling them baby killers.
I value
Couldn't handle
their
that.
opinion.
I
value their
left the
opinion
stream. I
very
just closed the
little.
stream. Yeah, go ahead. But it was horrible because they were, yeah, let's, no, I mean, they were,
No,
had
so,
to say
so this is where I landed on it, and thankfully I've been able to maintain this position for a while now. I think you're kind of right that the reason why we're able to do what we do, I really think that people take American civic virtues for granted. So, for instance, when we were talking about like immigration earlier, I am not a mean and cruel person because I haven't seen other parts of the world. I am a mean and cruel person because I have seen other parts of the world. So basically, I know that there are places that exist that if you criticize your political leaders, you end up in a cage and they torture you for days on end. And here we turned it into a sport. Literally, like all Twitter is making fun of elected political officials. That's all it is.
mockery.
Yeah, and then I also know that there are places where if you challenge security forces, we actually we had some Ugandans. So this will be like a really brief story, but one of my buddies, he worked with Ugandans, and they caught like a bunch of like insurgents or whatever, and they were like, hey, we're about to take them back to the base, blah blah blah, and they turned their back on the Ugandans like for like 1 second, and like as they like turned their back on the Ugandans, the Ugandan like pulled out a pistol and like racked it, and he was like about to like just start executing people on the side of the road. And they're like, whoa, like what the fuck, like chill, like chill the fuck out. We're taking him back to the base. And they're like, you sure? I could just kill him. And I'm like, no, like we're going back to the base, fuckers. So like I know there's entire moral systems in society in which like the execution of like unarmed people is just like a moral given. So
that's true.
So for kind of like simultaneously, this is kind of the way it's the way that I feel about burning the flag too. People don't know how good they have it, but the fact that this woman feels comfortable articulating like baby killer without getting punched in the face or killed by a government official or whatever is actually like unironically an expression of just how good we have it politically.
That's
so
what
while,
I say. That's what I say. I agree with that.
Yeah. So while I can be disgusted with the rhetoric, and I'll fight it rhetorically, and if they get in my face, it could get physical. It's still a symbol to me of maybe not specifically what I fought for, but that my society and my culture has at least a couple of things right. And so I hold on to that. So even when I have like dumb fuck college students talking over me when we're talking about like geopolitics or whatever, and they have like historical and military takes that literally could be taken out of like a fucking Reader's Digest.
They have been.
That's okay. That's okay. Because I I was young and dumb. I liked alcohol. I liked women. I did stupid shit. It's just their turn to be young and dumb, and I
It's
find that
their turn.
beautiful.
I said to that girl in that class the same, but the only reason she could sit there and say these things at all was because of a free society with democracy that was upheld at a great expense of
Yeah, I
life.
don't see. And here's
And
the thing.
that,
This is where I'm a cynic.
you know,
I don't think us blowing up oil field, not us blowing up oil fields, but like I don't think us like fighting in the Middle East and North Africa guarantees freedom of speech. But that being said,
no, not at
her
all.
her
I
ability.
mean this. I mean this
Mm,
is that the people that did fight, the people that
mhm,
had to fight when they didn't want to, and the people that did fight did it
mhm,
because they believed in her right to call them baby killers. And this is what she had to contend with.
mhm.
Um,
Most of them,
because
anyways, or a
especially with
decent
my
chunk of them.
service, yeah, with my service, there was a great deal of loss in ground troops until
Mm,
we went into the drone wars.
mm,
All of it, I think, was totally unnecessary.
mm.
I just think it totally unnecessary. But the sacrifices have been made, and when you talk about people who had to go, and they had to go, and they went anyway, and that, she had to understand that all of her liberties came at great cost before we had the world wars. Great, great sacrifice and cost. And so if you're going to make those takes, at least respect the where the quote right that gives them to make them unobstructed came from. And she understood that, and she duly silenced herself. And that's how we know she understood that. That's what I mean. That regardless of the reasons, rationales, the graves,
Yeah,
still are the testimony to things that happen all over the world. So nobody can cure war. It's not like a potion. Just taking care of it. But I would rather that the sacrifices at least be respected. But I guess that's asking too much. That's how I'm feeling right now.
I'm way more of a cynic than you are.
Oh, I'm very cynical. I just when you deal with other people, it's a different
Yeah,
different.
so part of the reason why my reactions are genuine is because
Mhm.
I have very low expectations of people, like very low.
Yeah, it's
Right?
best to have low expectations. Exactly, they're not you for one. Yeah,
But also it's easier to be um it's easier to be disappointed when you have like low expectations. Like it's
correct.
just
If you have no expectations, you're always going to be pleasantly surprised. That's my motto.
easier.
That is my
but
actual ethic. That's
but
how I approach everything.
but you know what's funny is like I don't know. There's a part of me that loves being furious.
Yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah. I
so
know.
that's why I venture into these spaces is because no, a lot of these people are intelligent too.
Very.
Yeah. Like a lot of these
Zoomers
people
that
are intelligent. They just have dog shit information. So like I think of
might
intelligence
be
as like the ability to like process, understand, and regurgitate information. I think that's intelligence. I think experience is like the actual information that you consume. So these
wisdom.
people are incredibly intelligent, but they don't have much experience.
Oh,
And
wisdom,
then
correct.
yeah, and then that's like for me, the older I get, the dumber I realize I am. Because
Right,
even though I consider myself intelligent and consider myself experienced, I realize how much I don't know.
correct. I
That's
believe this true.
terrifying.
It is, especially as a parent.
Yeah.
I
Gotta
get
make it up.
everything.
Make it up as you
But
go along.
we used to say, without the real life opportunity, I see what I liked about that one take is I understand the value of learning lessons, learning moments, life experience, and raised in front of a television or raised with a phone as a babysitter and a video game as a best friend.
Mm.
Um, leaves that child sorely unprepared for anything real, including their own emotions.
Hmm.
They have not been given the chance to fall down, skin the knee, cry their hearts out, get mad, screw up, embarrass themselves, and be forgiven and welcomed back in. They just didn't have that socialization process. They won't have the wisdom because they don't that they need to reach for that. And they're not managing. They're not self-managing. They're self-medicating.
I
They're
feel
self-indulging. And I'm like, yeah. And they don't have access to the information. I can't stand when I hear two things. Is I researched that, which meant you Googled it. I'm an actual researcher, so that's so offensive to me.
I just Google everything.
And the other one is, I read a book on that. I know this. Oh,
Yeah, you got to read like 3 books
I'm
with all
sitting
with
here as
contradictory opinions.
a researcher and a professor going, I wish I could give you a P right now for the brilliant analysis you did of Kropotkin
Yeah.
in 8th grade, but that's not going to cut it. So I don't want to critique people for that. I just see them caring a lot about being right, getting it right, which is that's your hope. Because if you want to get it right, how about we give you better information? How about we give you the real thing? Because it looks to me like you really want, and if you go into battle unarmed with shoddy defense, you are going to get hurt. And every war chief becomes a peace chief because they wake up one day and realize that no life is worth losing. No life is acceptable to lose. And they stop. They try to understand and become diplomatic to save life. It happens to all of us. We get tired of losing.
That part of it I agree with, because so basically I think that there's fundamentals, and I probably do have to go soon. It is getting fairly late, but
Okay, appreciate your time.
No, I love being here. So what I would say is, as I got older, is that like Jordan Peterson says this. I don't know what kind of ethics you guys came up with, but basically it's like you don't get to pick. You don't get to pick whether or not you live or die. You just get to pick which hill you get to die on, and I think that's really true.
I think so.
Yeah, it's like we're all mortal. We all have a certain amount of time with which to spend our efforts. So we really only get to choose what we get to do with our time and where we get to, put our heads at night. So for me, that being true, there are principled things that I think are worth fighting for. And part of the reason why I'm so unreserved on Twitch is because I think 60 years from now, I'm going to be dead and nobody's going to know my fucking name. Seriously.
Me too.
Yeah. So is it going to matter if I get Twitter canceled? Is it going to matter if I get into a beef? Is it going to matter if I argue my points publicly? No, it doesn't. It matters because I want to impact other people, but it doesn't matter because nobody's going to give a fuck 3 generations from now. Like it'll be surprising if anybody even knows my name 3 generations.
Right.
So that puts pressure on the here and now to make the right calls, to do the right things, to fight for the things that you care about, and to try to make the next generation better. And somebody said this to me. Yeah, somebody said this to me, and I thought it was really important. A debate is who is right, and a conversation is what is right.
Right.
And I think that's what I think like ADT and my conversation came down to, where we were more talking about like what we think is descriptively accurate and what we think prescriptively would work, rather than ADT's a piece of shit because he disagrees with me. Connor's a piece of shit because he disagrees with me on this one descriptive or prescriptive claim. And oftentimes, like, the reason why I value what you're doing here so much is because I feel like we have the opportunity to express that without that external pressure to be like, nah, like, you should go for the throat. You should go for the jugular. You should go for the memes. You should try to get a clip of your opponent being an ass. That's why I value this structure. Yeah.
Well, and it gets heated. Now, Jane, she sort of started to train for debate. That's not what she does, but my God, is she ferocious when she polarizes because she's autistic. It's immovable. She's monolithic. And she's a battle rapper, an actual championship battle rapper, and so she'll fly at you like Eminem. and not one ad hominem.
Mm,
She won't even cuss.
for
It's just a
her.
river, a volley. And
That's clever.
well, and the thing is, I thought in this debate was I thought originally she might want to, but given the nature of the content, I don't really want golden gloves on this.
Yeah.
So she said, us up for the panel. We have autism to deal with, so we're going to move that golden glove routine over there to autism because that's more our community. It's a different dynamic. That's fine. And the way that you guys did it was just informative and fair, and a lot of, as Kyle says, interesting perspectives. That's far more productive than a case like this. It's very, very low key and quiet. I still say I appreciate the respect you show. That matters so much to me. You have no idea. But it's probably time. Yeah, we do let you go, and I appreciate the time. And this conversation has been one of the best conversations I've ever had.
This was
Just sitting
great.
here and
I
talking.
mean, to be quite honest, like just listening to this was absolutely, definitely something to think about, write down. This was a heavy conversation. I'll say that.
Oh, I usually delete the VODs. I might leave this one. Yeah, Kyle is asking whether a bunch of honor like could sit down, get the cop, the paramedic, the HRTS people, activist corpsmen, all this kind of stuff, and sit down and have this conversation. And if you
100%.
want to do that, you can. I can set it up on Veterans Day, Tuesday, whatever. But I think people are kind of hungering for what you say. They want to hear from, not about, and that's my whole platform is speak from, not about.
Mhm.
I don't need to hear what you have to say about anything. I want your story because that's our medicine.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind picking your brain basically about I don't know what your tribal background is.
Oh, you
Um,
might be interested in us. We're very fascinating, I must say. We brag about ourselves. We're arrogant as hell.
no,
We're
but it's because
absolute we are.
it's something we fundamentally lost, like identity wise,
Yes, you did.
as Americans, is we don't have very deep roots, we don't have very
I know
deep
that.
cultural concerns. And basically, what I see is this aversion because I think everybody is so afraid of their own trauma. I see an American aversion to talking about violence and its impact and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like you mentioned
Yes.
from like exterior judgment,
Yeah.
but also even amongst themselves, we're so divorced from this world because like basically just to be really brief. I deployed, I came back, but because I wasn't a combat troop, they gave us 3 days with each other and then we left. And I literally think that was like traumatizing for me because I was like, I went to this hostile situation. I thought there was a chance I was going to die. I didn't die, and not that much intense shit happened. But these are the people that like I lived with, slept with, like shit with, breathed with
That's
for a
right.
year and a half.
That's right.
And you basically gave me 3 days to say goodbye, and now I'm
That's right.
fucking scattered to the wind again.
They gave you days though in the Marines. I'm sure we call that 3 days to kill. That's what we call that time period. But in our case, Air Force, you can say what you want, but cold-blooded, we were all enlisted and told you are expendable. As far as we're concerned, your nomenclature is XB3. It means expendable. It means we use you up till you're done and then we throw you away. Trash. We melt you down. Make no mistake, you don't matter.
Well,
None
they
of
didn't
it.
tell that to our face, but I could.
Oh, they told us to
basically.
our face every single day. They would wake up. They would wake up and call us, "Okay, wasters. Okay, trash bag. Okay, scrap metal."
Jeez.
And we were
Yeah.
like, I was like, and my arrogant ass came in. I was like, "Fuck you. I'm gonna make." I was always in the where
At least you had a cool.
I had
At
no
least you had a cool
respect for
nickname.
nobody, man. You couldn't get your hat brim under my. I'm gonna get out my. I was ate up, boy. I was new Air Force, and they knew I was ate up. I broke all their records. I broke all their records. Man, intractable, and I was in charge. and I was missile launched, and I got. So you couldn't touch my ass. My performance was sterling, and I was just like, for every
You
time I
got
did something
plastic
perfect,
hands, all
I
right?
knew, I knew nobody would know who I was. So I performance record when it reaches my mother to be perfect, and so that's what I worked for. That was 8 up, but correct. And I
I
remember that.
actually, I have a shirt. It's from a company called Inkfidel. It's not in production
Oh,
anymore, but it's
mhm.
literally the 7 Up logo, but it's 8 up.
8 up, 8 up. I need that one. I need that shirt. That's me. 8 up. My people were we're just defiant. We're hunter gatherer. We are considered among the most primitive people of North America. However, uh, the most adaptive, the most successful in terms of our sovereignty.
Hmm.
We all seem to be naturally gifted in linguistics. We have uncanny eye-to-hand coordination. To say that we were hunters, we alone sustained all 5 uh, populations of natives around us. Without us, everybody would have starved. But we flourished and thrived always. They say what we all do is we just stayed up in the woods hunting. We didn't miss. We launched the fur trade. So we
Hmm.
dealt with the French, not the Americans or the British or the Spanish.
So got killed a little
And
bit less.
we got killed a whole lot less. In fact, we didn't get conquered. We we weren't really colonized in the sense you want it to be.
Hmm.
We retained. I think we have the highest language retention. Our courts, we control everything. Our
Hmm.
original territories, we have full sovereignty, no Indian agent. Our courts are held in 3 languages. We carry a great deal. We have clout. We
Hmm.
always did. Um, it might be a little unique, but my people's case, when the British came in and seized Quebec, of course, they ousted all of us and burnt our villages around cities. It's
Hmm.
cities. So we have an unusual status, whereas we're Acadia. We have actual French sovereign status.
Hmm.
Where our lineage is fully documented, that's also rare. Uh,
Yeah.
and um, and then we also have our indigenous status as landholders. We're recognized as entitled. Very different situation for us, for our people.
That's
When
actually
we
pretty
came down to New
awesome.
Orleans, Americans took New Orleans, and then they ousted. And we fought for independence and for not to register, not to take the reservation deal. We fought like dogs and cats. We just fought. Seminole became incredibly successful. Finally, 2006, they were the last ones. They were the last to register, but by that time, they were so well established. It's not a race of people, an ethnicity, Seminole. It's actually a confederacy.
Yeah,
And
I'm in
uh,
Florida.
Yeah, so it's unusual because it took Seminole, Miccosukee, and then a lot of Choctaw, Catawban, Acadian people, a lot of freed slaves, uh, Haitians.
Yeah, actually, for anybody listening, one of the weirdest and coolest things about Floridian history is I'm not going to say it, but I'll spell it. The Negro fort.
Yeah.
It was literally a abandoned Spanish fort in like the northern part of Florida. And basically, what happened was a bunch of like Creek who escaped Georgia and escaped
Yeah.
slaves got
Yep.
together. They tilled the land for like miles in every direction.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Americas, I want to say it was like an incursion before they actually bought it from the Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
but it might have been like right after they bought it. I forgot. But they sent in like 3 gunboats to test the defenses of the fort, and the fort fired on them. And then they fired a hot shot cannonball into the fort, which is basically a cannonball that's been put in the furnace intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
and it hit the gunpowder reserve and it killed like 500 people like instantaneously.
Right.
Jesus.
And Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And actually, there's like a few letters from the people who were in the gunboats who were like, "Listen, we came down here to fight the Creek and the Seminole or whatever, and they shot at us. But like, I literally had to have dudes like go back to the rear because they were so fucked up because they killed like a few hundred, kids and women and all that kind of stuff with
Yeah,
the
they hit the
gunpowder
target.
explosion." And this was like the early to mid 1800s too. So when you think about that, like that's only like grandparent. That's only like 2 80-year-olds.
not
It's not that long
right.
ago.
It's not that far ago. Right.
Yeah, and we like the same way I think I mentioned earlier that Americans conceptualize the Middle East and North Africa as like this like fantasy land where we can like kill
Uh-huh.
people and then leave.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the same way we conceptualize the 19th century, where we're like, oh, it was so long ago. Who even knows what happened? And it's like, nah, like we know what happened. Like it was my granddaddy's granddaddy who was doing fucking fucked up shit. So like, let's be
Right.
real here about timelines and what we did and who did what and when and where and why. And it's not because I don't love America. I still love America. But I would love America more if we were honest about what we did and we just looked that shit square in the eyes.
Well, you can't learn if you can't admit. Yes, correct. I think so.
Yeah.
I know I hear a lot of people at my stream. They come in when I first started, saying the most. I think I might have said it to you, Truth. I don't remember, but I used to have these people that would come in and they saw indigenous, and I came off the powwow trail, so I'm used to dealing with people. We call them wannabes.
Mm.
And they'll show up with yarn braids and can you tell me what my spirit animal is? And I think I had a Cherokee grandmother and we call them, and I was the linguist and I was the head lady. They would always make me go honor bees to cut them off before they did some stupid shit, right? Because you can't really get into the area where the drums are. And they would scooch up on you and start touching your regalia. It had been smudged and blessed. You wouldn't grab a priest's vestments. So they didn't really respect us. And I always got to deal with these people. And they would say things like you could tell they just didn't belong and like their own culture. And I guess they had guilt. I don't know what was going on. So I go on my stream. I thought all that's over with. No, here they come. And they come up in my stream. Can you help me get out of my whiteness? Can you zip me out? Somebody said that to me. I went, and I said, I think, Truth, I said it to you. I said, well, okay, you don't know anything about me or my people. Yeah, we don't have a. All right. Yes, we revere our ancestors. We are responsible for 7 generations back, 7 generations forward. And I said, you actually came to me, and you came to me on those terms, and you asked me to help you spit in your grandmother's face. Basically, asking me to do. You're in the wrong place. You don't need to be here. And I think you should probably leave because you're definitely.
People
Because the
don't
last thing I'm
know.
going to do is allow you to shit on your ancestors. You seriously need to learn a few things. And again, I let go of. I could have had hundreds in here banging on a drum and pretending to shake a tent and convince them all day long. Because they came flocking over. And I'm going to have to ask y'all to leave. Because I can't believe you would come to me and ask me to do that. I can't believe you would do that. So I had to let that whole crew go. And I said, I'm not here to do this. I didn't put you in a white suit. I'm not going to get you out of it. I mean, you need to learn to live in your own skin.
That's right.
But you're going to zip yourself out and become what? Skinless? Already raw. And I had to, took a few say, oh, you can't get that from her. She's not going to give you that. We'll go to the other places where they're going to make us feel guilty for being white. And they did. And then they came back crying. And I said, sucks to be you. It's too late. Hope you learned your lesson. when you get over that silly shit, maybe we can sit down and have an conversation about what matters to you. I mean, anything. But I felt that was really kind of sickening, to be honest. And yeah, I got what they meant, but I was like, but I don't think you realize what you're saying.
I don't think they do either.
Well, they do
So
now.
yeah. Well,
And
and I do have to get going, but basically,
yeah,
like,
like,
no,
sweet
no, no, no.
dreams.
It was beautiful. I appreciate it.
I
So yeah. So no, it was
we're
awesome.
let's have this panel or conversation if you want. I'll go ahead and do that.
Cool.
Saturdays, and I'll try to get this dream team together next Saturday, 7 or 9. 7 is good. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7's good. So no, it was beautiful. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Hit me up, and I'll catch you guys soon, and I'll pick your brain about some more stuff.
Yeah, hit me up. I'm here all the time, so honestly, come find me. Okay.
All right,
But I
I'll catch
appreciate
you
it.
guys.
Thank you so much. It was great, very useful. So very happy to have you. You have a good night.
Thanks, ADT. Catch you, buddy.
All right, for sure. See ya.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, that was interesting.
Those are heavy conversations, huh?
Yeah,
What do you
no, it
think
really
about all that?
was. Wow. I mean, Jesus. I'm
Well,
just trying to soak it in. I'm just trying to soak it in.
well, there's something, I guess. I'm so
Yeah.
happy that you're here and that you sat for this and that won the judges score on this debate. And
Well,
you
thank
did
you.
everything you I here da 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 laid out the rules and and you did it and you grabbed that goalpost. I was so proud of you. I was like, oh my god, you just snatched it twice. You just snatched it twice. He told you he was shocked. He didn't expect that. He had, and I went, you got counterpoints to take a step back twice. He snatched his goalpost twice. And it was difficult. And I was like, I'm very, very happy that you proved to be a challenge.
Yeah,
That was so
I'm
cool.
sure that the more challenges come, I think the more I'll be able to grasp it even better.
You did, I heard the yes, but I heard the no, and you stood by the motion. You snatched it. You snatched that goalpost. You did it. But it was so quiet and so gentle and so subtle. And it's quite a strategy to just quietly persist. So I was really pleased that you did that and you took that obviously seriously. And it just goes to show you never underestimate you never know what somebody's capable.
That's very
But
true.
yeah, what do you think about this big old conversation? I'm surprised he sat. I thought, he's a family man. He doesn't have time to offer. So I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
he
No,
enjoyed it.
I saw that. I think he may have almost. I don't know if the word is cathartic, but necessary.
I hope so.
I felt
Necessary.
necessary because, like, you
Uh,
could tell. I mean, he was just listening, going on and on and on and on and on about his like experiences and what he sees, and like you also had your like um at this point like a lifetime of stories. So
oh,
I
good.
think yeah, I think that that jeez, that's such a heavy stories. You know.
Yeah. Oh, and those aren't even the real stories. Those are the summary versions.
Yeah.
Because if we got to talking about actual stuff, when you change into the present tense, you stop using past tense,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're actually in it. Those stories are something. That's um, and I'm very careful about those now. I used to be kind of coming, but I saw the impact on the audience several
Yeah.
times, and I thought I got to really think about that. I come from violence, so my stories have that heavy impact.
Yeah.
So, and I have to like, you don't need to bang a person over the head with a bag of bricks every time.
Right.
You know, weaponizing your language when you tell a hard truth like that to somebody who's incredibly fragile, you've weaponized it.
That's true.
So you can tame a horse, so to speak, or you can break a horse.
Yep.
You can do that to people.
Yeah.
You know, crush them. My grandmother had a way of doing that too. She could do that too. Just had you in tears, just begging her to stop it down. But yeah, I don't know. What did you? Like I say, what? I'm glad that you're here to share all that. You're the only person ever to hear them, by the way, along with the
Wow.
6
Well,
people here. You
I am
guys, you
so
7 of
glad.
you.
I am so glad
Well,
then.
I try to make the visits here. This is a medicine circle, so I try to make it worth people's time. And I'm all about the truth. You know, these things need to be said. I just
Yeah.
think that it takes some nuance, and you got to kind of gauge a person's tolerance and capacity for things. You
Yeah.
don't have to bulldoze them. You know, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But my whole thing was these. When I came to Twitch, I saw that the activists, if you will, were so unprepared. And I thought the whole time BLM, and I thought, oh God, you kids are gonna go running out there. And I thought the whole time BLM, we're gonna be watching you get pegged on camera, and this is gonna be a nightmare. And I had a lot of people in my chat, and I was just like, stay in here where I can tell you getting ready, because I was an activist too. And originally we had lots and lots and lots of people in here wanting to hear. And I said, you're gonna have to make up your own minds, because once you're nobody can do anything. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And I think they made better decisions, to be honest, because they think they realized that they really weren't ready for this, for what they were thinking they were gonna do. You know, they really weren't ready. That they did not know how to defend themselves. They did not
Yeah.
know what to do if somebody next to them fell. They didn't know how to handle the cops. They didn't know how to uh, uh, prepare. They just didn't know. And then they said, "Can't you go down there and go to the activist groups and train them?" I said, "I think they got somebody already, but I'll be happy to. I'd be happy to." So I said, "I got a lot of other people that would be happy to train you for field combat, if you will." And then they decided that they just no, that wasn't their wheelhouse. That isn't how they were going to make it. That isn't what that wasn't going to do anyone any good. I said, well, then you need to decide what is going to make a difference. What can you do? You know, and they did well, nothing. They ended up just feeling helpless and useless, and they wouldn't do. They didn't do the call your congressman thing. They sort of didn't take political action. I thought they would be very savvy. That they'd know how to go to their state senate, that they'd know how to call, that they'd know how to do petitions, that they'd know how to do peaceful protests, silent marches, whatever it took. That
Yeah.
they'd know
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
go door to door to do. But then you had also COVID preventing people from moving. To be honest, know how to go door to door. That's what really crushed them, is the fact that they couldn't do a thing because they had to distance and they were quarantined, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I
Correct.
thought, this is super stressful. This is not going to end well, because the momentum is built up and you're bottlenecked by this disease. And it did. It turned ugly and bad real fast, and it's still rippling. I think a lot of this is going on is just pure, absolute penned-in frustration.
Oh, 100% agree on that. I mean, there are legitimate grievances that are underneath that have been there for decades, and and COVID just kind of yeeted that off the cliff. And
Oh, you just plugged all that tension.
yeah, and then COVID just
And it erupts with people crawling up the Capitol building.
yeah. There's a lot of pent up frustration and a lot of genuine grievances that were never solved by even before the Trump era. There was a lot of grievances that were never fixed, and this is kind of like all the chickens coming home to roost.
Do you know what? I remember it was 2012 where I really, especially I was a journalist then, where I really saw it start congealing, if you will. And I said, something's bad's like happening right now. I don't know where this is going to go, but I could feel it. I could tell because I was handling a lot of footage. There were a lot of shady moves, government to government. There was a lot of disturbing trends and discourse. It was all happening at the same time. And I think people, the Kool-Aid people are going, oh yeah, 2012, it's the prophecy, it's the end of the world. And so watch them start some dumb shit. And right then it did, as exactly. And I was like, I knew it was just downhill from there.
Yeah,
And I'd have to say,
sure enough.
it's like a slope.
Yeah,
I mean, all this
absolutely.
violence, what is all this for? What is all this for?
Uh,
There's no reason for this. It's like they're
yeah,
LARPing. It's my turn to be a hippie, or what the fuck do you think you're doing?
yeah. I just
Like, you
wish
know
that,
what I'm saying?
you know, we still have levers to press, and I think that we should be doing everything that we can to press whatever levers we still have to make change. Um, that
I think
doesn't
that
require violence.
people should just take into account their own inventories, and they have got to start coming together collectively to manage their own backyards. And the fact is, this whole time, I've never seen anybody even try.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like, okay, y'all talking a good story. I don't see any outcomes.
That's true. Like yeah, and I stress that a lot. You know, you have to organize, get your community together, talk to your neighbors. I mean, this is how it works.
Change, change, neighbor to neighbor. Make the changes that you need for yourselves together in your own communities, neighborhood to neighborhood.
It
Cooperate
all sucks.
together. You don't need local, state, or federal involvement to make life better for everyone. You just don't. You don't. It's a village. Remember that. Nobody here is related,
Yeah,
and
you
they
you
don't see
start from
each
the
other.
down up.
You start from the down. The down will go up. It will. It will have an effect up. You don't even need to reach up. You just take care of it here. It's just like growing a garden has this effect on the atmosphere. All you got to do is let it grow like a miracle, clean air. But nobody sees each other as obligated or really affiliated together. And so they all aim at one place, government. It's easy. It's easy to aim. It's easy to pick on the government. We all need a reason to believe and someone to blame for it. It's very easy.
Yeah,
But when you start showing your government what you're capable of, they will back you 100% because they don't know what to do. They're out of touch.
right.
They sitting
So
up
it's up
there
to
with
the
a
people.
big, ah, they're holding that big mask up, going, I hope this thing doesn't fall on us because we have no clue what we're doing. Correct?
Right.
Mm. Songbird went and got Little Stone and came back. Yeah, perfect time. Um, but indigenous people, we've always worked like this and lived like this. And now I think if you're going to learn something from us, it's not to zip you out of a white suit. It's to learn how to create a collective community, how to make this work. My stream tries to do that. We try to identify people that, what we consider these are resources. Their wisdom, their experience, their knowledge, the time they give, their perspective is all vital. And collectively, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, that adds up to a whole bunch more than the sum of its parts. It won't do that if you collapse everybody into a little cluster of usness.
Yeah.
It can't
And
breathe.
yeah, and like I think a lot of the issues with the system is it itemizes us into these little things and isolates
Little
us.
unit. Yeah. Little interchangeable unit.
Right.
Yeah, they actually said that, Songbird. Zipped me out of my white suit. Oh, shit. When the person said that, I thought it was a person that was what we call wearing the. It's an indigenous person that will go around and to different communities and kind of try to mingle like among us. And then sometime what'll happen if you wear the skin of the enemy too long, you start to become them. And so we start to think like them, or we think in English when we don't speak English as a first language. And I thought that's what this person was saying, was that, oh, I've been out there in the enemy camps too long. Get me out of this white suit. And so I thought it was funny at first. And I just said, oh, yeah, what nation are you from? And they go, oh, New Jersey. I was like, what? Are you indigenous? No. I was like, oh,
What?
what the hell are you talking about to me? Yeah. And they actually said that to me. Zip me out of my white suit. And then they said I think they said they had racial dysphoria or something.
No idea what that means.
I was like, holy shit, is that a thing? And then we had a member of our community was actually black who'd always thought of himself as white. He said, when I looked in the mirror, I saw myself as white. And several months ago, I looked in the mirror one day and went, oh, I'm black as fuck. I said, how did that happen? He said, anyway, he finally realized that, nope, he was black. He wasn't white. He was never going to be white. And he said it was racial dysphoria. That he actually saw himself, or I guess dysmorphia. He actually saw himself as white.
I've
He'd look
never
in the mirror
seen
and
that.
saw a white man standing there. I'm looking at him with a really, really dark, smooth skin, the really strong features, and this woolly wool. I'm thinking, I don't know any white person who has features like these. How did you see this? How did you see yourself as white? He said, my mind did it. It just, my mind did it. I said, wow. Did you go to a therapist? He said he did have to talk to somebody. And I said, well, of course.
Yeah.
I know this. This is like Africans who've been colonized often. Many Native Americans often said the same thing. And they would bleach their skin and whatnot. You know, they would totally deny their ethnicity, I guess you would call it. Dye their hair, bleach their skin, put contacts in, anything to change the way they were seen by others. They hated their skin so much. Hated themselves.
Yeah, that's not good.
Oh, it's horrible to watch that.
Well, friend, unfortunately, I do have to get going. I do have to,
I know.
get some rest. I
Well,
do
for you
appreciate.
again, you do. I can't thank you enough for your time. You have no
Yeah, I
idea.
can't. I can't thank you enough for the experience and opportunity. I appreciate all the wonderful stories and the the heavy stories that you guys were talking about. Man, that is all an experience.
Well, we're guild. I hope you're a part of us. We have really, really good news. Tomorrow we meet at 2 p.m. Central to have a guild meeting. But if you'll stay in touch with me, I'll tell you what all we got going on again. I know we started to talk about it.
Okay.
And so I hope you're on board with that because I really think we can make this something.
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, we have good news. Tomorrow, hope we see you. If not, find me. I'm always here. Just get me. If you think I'm
Okay.
streaming, DM me anyway.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'm always here. And the dream team. I hope you say yes to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. The six of you.
I'm on board.
Holy shit.
just to keep going on it.
Every Saturday, and Connor said that's it. He said just give me the motion, the date, and the time, and I said okay, you've got the motions. You said immigration was an issue for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he mentioned it, so I figured that that's probably a point of contention. I'm I can also do climate change. A really any topic. I mean,
I'll let you go, but I already have 2 people in mind for you. Climate change. I don't think you can bait this. I think a panel would be great for you guys. We have also, if you check the Google sheet, we have, which I sent you. I think I sent you. We have all those other motions. A lot of it has to do with Twitch. So if you look over the motions, it's in the Discord channel, the coup. And so on a Google sheet sign up. If I don't have you yet, I'll get you on there.
okay.
But that's a tremendously strong team. I hope you guys say yes to that next Saturday. So look
Yeah,
for
for
the
sure.
motion. I'm not sure what the motion would be. I'll pick it out and let you know. Immigration is fine. I'm not sure. That's a tough one. I want one where it actually is We none of us can affect policy on immigration.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'll let you go, but thank you so much again. I hope we
of
didn't
course.
scare you off.
No, no, no. This is great.
You got to tell me more of your story too. You're a musician. I'm a musician. I
Yeah.
was born a musician first. The rest of it just was accidental. So, oh yeah, open mic night on Mondays too. You think you can come by and give us a sample?
Maybe one of these Mondays for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You
It
said it's
starts
every
at like
Monday?
every Monday starts about 7 or 8 Central and goes all night. So,
Cool.
okay. I think you did a great job. By
Thank
the
you. I
way, you
appreciate
won your
that.
first debate. Won your first debate. How about that?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. Hopefully, I can get a good VOD up for you. Okay, so we'll let you go, and thank you for all the time that you spent. Really, it's
Yeah,
very,
of
very nice
course.
to have you.
Thank you. I
Mhm.
appreciate it. You take care
Yeah,
and you
you're
have a good one.
welcome. See you soon, I hope.
See ya. Of course.
See ya. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.